All right, what is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Mets Weekly Podcast as we are live at this very moment on YouTube and on X to discuss the latest offseason news and rumors in New York Mets land. But before we get into that, I want to remind everyone to subscribe to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel for new episodes of our show that are regularly recorded every Friday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. However, there were so many moves that they just made over this past week that it kind of just shifted our schedule to where we are going live on a Tuesday. But either way, we're going to work around it. For those of you watching or listening on playback, you want to join the conversation in the future, make sure to turn on those post notifications to know when we go live, which includes live reactions to off-season moves that are not available on audio, but only on our YouTube channel. Make sure to follow Mets Weekly on X and on TikTok for more content over there. For our audio listeners, make sure to follow us on all your favorite listening platforms to not miss the audio version of new episodes that go up at 9 a.m. the following day of recorded. Also, make sure to give us a 5-star review. It would be greatly appreciated. So without further ado, let's get into episode number 185 of our show. Andrew, it's been a while since our last podcast. They have gone absolutely insane over this past week. And to be honest, all of these moves have been made official. It's been a while since we have gone live either way. But all the criticism, all the anxiousness, all the uncertainty, it's starting to fizzle down as the Mets continue to add this offseason, moving on from other pieces. So as of right now, it's starting to shape up a little bit. Maybe a few little moves here and then are left, but either way, it's looking good.
It's almost like the expression, let the man cook. Because if you're trying to make a cake, cake's not built. You can't just make a cake like this. There's layers to it. And that's what David Stearns has done this offseason. He broke a couple eggs with Pete Alonso and Edwin Diaz and losing everybody. But you had to make a new pretty cake. And the cake he's made now looks pretty damn good. And every day it seems like over the last week, they've made a transaction, which again, we went kind of quiet after the Christmas break, like most teams did. But lately, it seems every day we get a new Mets transaction in big league, minor league, and it looks to be most of the big stuff is done. So now it's just kind of, bottom of the roster, filling out the 40-man roster, and then getting into spring training because, hey, look at our calendars, ladies, boys, and girls, and everything in between. We got 8 pitchers and catchers report in 2 weeks, and first full squad workout is in 3 weeks. So less than a month away, and we are back in beautiful Port St. Lucie. Baseball's on the field, and we can yell about games that do not matter.
I mean, it seemed like a lot of those moves that they have made, it seemed like they had a lot of them in place to actually make those moves. And the fact that they all just kind of flooded in like 5 days, it was pretty impressive the way that everything just kind of formed itself in just like 1 week. And you kind of do expect that pace to kind of perk up, obviously, with them being so close to pitchers and catchers reporting. I don't know what is in store, but we do have to recap every single move that they have made. And either way, we have a lot to get into. So let's bring in some guests. This duo has been on our show plenty of times. I think in a short amount of time, we're going to have to name them honorary members of our show. That's how many times these guys have been coming on here. Please welcome back Evan and Matt from the Mets Central podcast. Great to have you guys back on here. You guys were here for some of the Tucker Watch that we were doing. You guys, it seems like you guys are like the second in command for this show now, which, again, more the merrier, of course, but a lot has changed since then. Evan?
Yeah, like Andrew said, they're making that cake. It comes in different shapes and sizes, as we know, these cakes. So just had to wait and see for it to come together. But yeah, it's exciting because I think this team is a lot better, obviously they're better than the last time we spoke, but also from last season, I think that they're way better than they were last year. And we'll talk about all the moves they made. I'm excited.
Yeah. I mean, there is some things that they still need to fill in and figure out position-wise. However, I think, Matt, we can all agree definitely in a better position and a better thought-out process that none of us really knew what the plan was, and now it's starting to fizzle in. It's like, okay, this is what we're here to do. We've made some of these additions. We've deepened the lineup, added to the rotation. We'll get into all of that. But I think it's safe to say that, you can feel really good about this team going into 2026 now.
Yeah, I mean, as always, I'm glad to be back on because whenever us four get together, it's always an entertaining show. Let's put it that way. But I mean, yeah, listen, I gotta fully agree with Andrew here. You gotta let the guy bake the cake, and I mean, if you go through Andrew's phone, you'll clearly see that he knows a lot about baking cakes. So, but yeah, no, I mean, listen, like you said last time we were on here, we had the whole Kyle Tucker sweepstakes. Obviously, that didn't end the way we wanted to. He goes to the LA Dodgers because, of course, he does. Why would you want to come play for the Mets? But it is what it is. And, we were all wondering, how exactly is David Stern and Steve Cohen going to pivot? Well, in the span of a week, 3 quick moves, Bichette signing, Robert traded for. They traded for Freddy Peralta. They got Luis Garcia, too. Craig Kimbrell, if you want to even include him, too, on a minor league deal. Because, future Hall of Famer, so you got to technically include him. But I mean, yeah, listen, I completely agree. And we've been saying it in our group chats. Going into this season, I feel a lot more comfortable. I feel a lot more comfortable about where this team is compared to where it was last year. Now, you can maybe say that's recency bias just because of the way last year ended, but I look at the way this team is, looking like right now, and they look a lot more cleaner. They look a lot, better defensive soundly. The offense looks a lot more better. Obviously, that still has to, convert to wins on the field and performances, but I feel confident about where this team is going into opening day. But I mean, apparently David Stern still is a small market GM. Steve Cohen only cares about the casino, and yeah, I mean, but hey, listen, I feel confident about where this team is going, and yeah, boys, we've got 3 more weeks till spring training. I'm excited for Mets baseball to come back.
I mean, you do never know what's going to happen. Could they be attached to somebody else? We don't know. We're not really going to go after much of the news in this because there's so many moves that this team made, and there's so many explanations as to what they are going to do with these certain players, what the outlook is going to be for them. And obviously, I think we can do just like a little bit of a briefing on Kyle Tucker before we even get into the move they made the next day. Again, the whole thing with Kyle Tucker, $60 million is a lot. And the Mets were also in that boat. They offered him 4 years, $220 million. It was no deferrals as compared to, what they were doing, on the Dodgers side where they deferred some of them. I don't know if the Dodgers outbid them in overall non-deferred money or something, but the Mets put their best foot forward trying to pursue a guy like Kyle Tucker. And it seemed like he just did not want to be a Met. Because I again, and I don't blame you if you want to go over to the winners and join the Dodgers, but again, Kyle Tucker, message to you. I'm just saying, if you ever come back to Citi Field, there's going to be a strong perception, and I don't think it's going to be well liked. Let's just say that. Either way, does it suck to see how all of this completely unfolded with all the moves that they made, and you're like, okay, you add Tucker to this of all the moves that they made? Does that suck that it looks a little bit different? And there's like maybe a little hole in left field, in the outfield. You have a little bit of uncertainty in your lineup. Yes, it sucks. However, the adds that they have made to this lineup, the depth that they have added to this lineup, I think I'm very, very confident with it. Andrew, we know that you are definitely in on Kyle Tucker. You wanted Kyle Tucker. We knew that, the Bellinger situation, he ends up going back to the Yankees. He signed with the Yankees a week ago. Either way, I just don't feel like you can be mad at the effort that the Mets made for Kyle Tucker. It's nearly impossible considering what they were offering to him, which was borderline insane when you think about it.
Yeah, again, it looks like an NBA supermax. That's what, if you look at it in that way, and even to the extent to the guy we signed. But I said it on the pod when we talked about Kyle Tucker before we did Tuck Watch and like 95 live streams of hours of playing Sporkle quiz. That's how late we did them. My thing, I said, if it's the Dodgers, he would have went to Toronto if he wanted the term. But if he got to a short-term deal, a pillow contract, whatever you want to call it, if it was us and the Dodgers, every person's taking the Dodgers. And especially when, again, they gave you more AAV, and the Mets after deferral, they still was $57 million a year. The only weird thing is that the Mets front-loaded it so heavily, or the Dodgers back-loaded. I mean, again, of course, Dodgers getting bailed out again because you'll probably not see those 2 years in the back half of that deal. But, again, I said he'd be a Dodger if he's short-term because, again, why would you sign, especially with a team that you didn't know what happened after the fact? We didn't know that at the time. So why would you come to a team whose locker room cancer, is straight up cancer. Everyone hates each other. We got TikTok dancers. We got a, Instagram thought head coach that's hating on us. Like, why would I go to that dumpster fire when I can go play in LA, who's gone back-to-back winning championships, is the gold standard organization? So I get the ugly stepchild or Sidney Sweeney. I think I'll take Sidney Sweeney, and he did that. It sucks. The Mets gave it every single opportunity and put a overpriced deal. Is he getting more deserved than? Is he getting more money than he deserves AAV? Of course. But again, the Dodgers have, they shit out $50 million. They can make it in Japanese revenue in 2 days. And that pays for Kyle Tucker. So that's what they do. It sucks. Again, it's the Avengers, and, everyone else has got to deal with it. I'm not going to cry about, we need a salary cap. Like, no. You just need to keep doing it. And, again, we're probably going to have a lockout because of it, because we've got, 15 owners that want to spend $5 million in an offseason and then say, well, we can't compete. You can't compete at the top, but you can compete at the middle of the market, but you're not even touching that. But that's a different discussion for next year when we're sitting here doing nothing in mid-friggin' January. But, again, it sucks, but just like it was, what was the response? And if this was, and I even kind of thought about it, especially with the tweet from Steve, was this Steven Matz 2.0? Where it's like, I'm going to get embarrassed and I'm going on a shopping spree. And at least in this version, they didn't go past their prime middle age, middle infielders and outfielders. They had a hell of a response. And again, that's all you can really say is if there was no response, we would have sit here with no moves. Then I think we could be a lot more yelly, screamy, angry people. Yeah. But again, you got embarrassed. You had poop on your face. You wiped it off, and you made a nice little chicken sandwich, and you got to enjoy it.
I don't even want to visualize that. I'm just going to move on. Anyways, Matt, I'll go right over to you about the whole Tucker situation. Obviously, we know that personally. Again, this is my like generalized opinion about this. I'm kind of happy that it happened, so we get the bad out of the way for this league to realize something has to be done about what the Dodgers are doing and what other teams aren't doing. I don't think that a salary cap solves anything. I think that it enables cheap owners. You need a salary floor, in my opinion. Will we get that? Who knows? Considering the man up top, I don't trust his leadership in this entirety of this league. However, it's a blessing in disguise for the future of baseball. It may suck as of right now that the Dodgers are stacking up the way that they are. However, when it comes to Kyle Tucker, he's a really good player. Is he $60 million worth a year? I don't know if he is. I can't say that he is. I don't think that he deserves more than Juan Soto. So, again, you can debate it the best way that you can. But, again, I'm kind of glad in the long term that this happened. I don't know if you agree.
Yeah, I mean, look, when the news first happened and we were at a fucking hockey game playing, when the news first broke, so we were just fucking like shell-shocked that happened. But, I mean, listen, you lose it on Kyle Tucker. Obviously, he's one of the better outfielders in baseball, and if he would have been in this lineup, it would have been a massive help because this is a guy that's, a World Series champion as well. He knows how to play, when basically the bright light and the spotlights are on him. Look, he didn't want to come here. It was simple as that. And like what we were saying, both me and Evan on our stream when Kyle Tucker signed, you can't fault the Mets because they basically did everything to try and sign him. Gave him a 4-year deal, short term. They gave him opt-outs after year 2, year 3. They gave him a $55 million AAV, which I didn't believe at first that they were going to offer him a higher AAV than Juan Soto. And the fact that they even went there was crazy in my opinion. And I mean, they gave him a higher signing bonus. The only difference between the two contracts was in terms of, because the Dodgers offered him more money overall, but the Mets offered him way more money up front. And of course, because it's the Dodgers, they have to do deferrals in their contract because, you know, it's by law right now. If you're doing a contract with the Dodgers, you at least have to defer some amount of money. And like I said, the Mets didn't defer any money, but like we said, he just didn't want to be here. And look, do I necessarily blame him? No, because you take the easy way out and you give yourself an easier way to win a championship. And we've kind of heard the rumors that Kyle Tucker wants to be more in the background rather than the spotlight. He doesn't really want to be one of the main guys. And look, when you're hitting behind guys like Ohtani, like Freeman, like Mookie Betts, even, you know, Teoscar to a certain extent, if you want to say Will Smith, yeah, you're going to be more of that fifth, sixth, fourth option realistically compared to, you know, if you're coming here, you're going to be the third option behind guys like Soto and Lindor. And like I said, he didn't want to be here. And from my perspective, while I would have liked him to be here, the way the Mets are building their roster, and if we want to change the perception of the Mets and how, you know, we view the culture and how they build teams, we want guys that want to be here. You know, we don't want to, you know, sure, it would have been nice to get Kyle Tucker because, like I said, he's one of the better outfielders in baseball. Yeah, but clearly his heart wasn't set here. And I know there's also the rumors that, you know, and again, I don't know if this is more of a hit piece or anything or just, you know, to make him look bad, but we've heard the rumors that, you know, he kind of really doesn't love baseball as much as typically what the regular professional athlete does. You know, whenever he's more in the clubhouse, he's more on his phone than looking at tapes and, you know, looking at stuff like what opposing pitchers he has to face for the next upcoming days. So, like I said, it is what it is. You can't blame the Mets. The only thing I will say is the only part I didn't like about this whole pursuit was the fact that Steve Cohen had to open his mouth and made that dumb fucking tweet about the smoke. I'm like, at that, listen, Steve, I love you. I'm glad you own the Mets, but in those certain cases, just shut up and just handle the negotiations. Like, there's no need to go on Twitter and that, because I realistically thought when he put out that tweet, I thought, oh shit, like we're actually going to sign this guy, and it just didn't work out. But listen, I like obviously we're going to talk about it more with Bichette, but I really like the pivot that they made with Bichette. Obviously, it came out of nowhere, which was a typical David Stearns thing, because usually his moves, they come out of the blue, like with the Semien Nimmo trade, with the Polanco stuff, with the Luke Weaver signing. And listen, I agree with you. Just wrap it all up. Mo, if we're sitting here and we're going to bet on things, there's going to be no baseball in 2027. Like, if we're looking like just like the best hope, we'll maybe get half a season, maybe like a 60-game season, what we saw in 2020. But we are not playing a full season of baseball next year. And how long the lockout lasts, I'm not too sure. But I agree with you, Carson, and this is my standpoint. I'm sure all you guys agree. A salary cap is not fixing this, because we know that the problems are the cheap owners. It's not the owners like the Guggenheim Group, like, you know, the Steinbrenners, like Steve Cohen. These guys are not the problem. It's the cheap owners, the guys that own the A's, the Pirates, the Tampa Bay Rays, the Brewers. You know, to a certain extent. So, like I said, it's not going to fix anything, and the players will never agree to it. So, I'll just say, like, guys, prepare for a long lockout next year, because I don't, and it's not going to be a pretty negotiation either.
I mean, it's gotten, you know, nastier and nastier between the MLB and the MLBPA for a while. Either way, Patrice saying here, you know, it feels like a salary cap hurts way more than everybody else. We have to go to the cap. Okay. So do the Dodgers, and then what? Then you go to the Dodgers because the rings, and they can outbid because, like, yeah, exactly. Like, it doesn't do much. I mean, we could get into this, you know, farther down the line, obviously. Evan, if you want to add anything before we get into all these signings that we made here, because they just opened the wallet.
Yeah, a salary cap's not doing anything, like you guys are saying, and it's just simply going to come down to the players are never going to agree to it. So that's why I don't even know if we're getting baseball at all next year. I agree with Matt that half a season at best, but I don't know if we get it at all. And it's just ridiculous that this is what it is instead of pushing for a cap floor over anything else. That makes way more sense above anything else, but I digress. I mean, the hope that I have is that the way that you could at least somewhat negate it coming out of this is capping teams on deferrals or something along those lines where you ban deferrals or, like I said, you cap teams. That's probably the best solution. But just in general with the Kyle Tucker thing, it is what it is. The Mets put in a strong offer. And when we didn't hear anything about the Dodgers offer, I kind of had a feeling that they're just going to swoop in and grab him. Like, it just had that feeling the entire time. And, you know, our chat was saying it at least nonstop. I don't know if your guys' chat was saying it, but when you are listed as the front runners for a free agent, typically it doesn't go well more times than not. So it did seem like it was just a media stunt there to, you know, help get a little bit more money from the Dodgers so he could, you know, chase a ring and run away from the grind in LA. But nonetheless, it is what it is. All I cared about is they had a pivot plan, and we saw it the next day, and we've seen it this past week. And that's what's more important, is that there was at least some sort of backup plan. Because if you were to tell me they lost out on him and then all of a sudden their direction is, yeah, we'll just play the young guys and see what happens this year, that's something I wouldn't have agreed with. So I'm glad they at least went in a different direction.
I mean, again, it all really just had to make sense as to who they mapped it out. But it seemed like, you know, a lot of these deals, like I said, were mapped out from the very beginning. However, they just did not really pull the trigger on it because they just didn't know where to pivot. And they were just waiting to be opportunistic. And I think that they're also going to continue to be opportunistic on the Framber Valdez market. If that continues to drop, maybe the Mets do get involved. We've seen that the Mets and the Orioles have gotten involved in this way, but the Mets also have locked down all of this money in the short term. It seems like, you know, the next 2 years, they have most of this money locked up. They'll have plenty that'll come off of the books, but they're not committing long term to any of these. So they can keep this flexible in the way where they don't have to commit to that. Either way, let's actually get into the signings that they made. And let's get into the first off pivot. I guess we're starting in order. And that being Bo Bichette, who the Mets have signed to a 3-year, $126 million contract to be the starting third baseman in 2026. We'll get into that in a second. And of course, the deal includes opt-outs after the year 1 and in year 2. Now, for those of you who don't know who Bo Bichette is, one of the best contact hitters in all of the sports. Slash line last year, 311, 357, 483, 18 homers, 94 runs batted in, 134 weighted runs created. Plus, barely strikes out. He's a great contact guy who will swing it a lot, but he knows how to make contact. Like I said, he is only just 28 years old. Free agent, like we said. Be a $42 million AAV, hits the ball hard. Exit velocities are in the top 15% regularly. Again, like I said, whiff rate, 83rd percentile in whiff rate. But one of the main advertisers for Bo Bichette, one of his main Wayne's skills, has obviously been the situational hitting. Throughout his entire career, he has been one of the best with runners in scoring position, and he had yet another great year, a 189 weighted runs created plus with runners in scoring position. He posted an 1,115 OPS in high leverage situations last year. Now, as for the contract, like I said, 3 years, $126 million. There is a player option after 2026 and in 2027. The Mets will give him a $5 million buyout in $1 million installments from 2036 to 2040. So it's kind of like deferred payments or guaranteed deferred payments if he opts out of the contract. Now, we are expecting Bo Bichette to be playing third base for this team, which he has 0 career innings at. He has never played third base ever before in his life, not even in the minors. We knew that at shortstop, arguably, he is the worst defensive shortstop in all of baseball and has been since he was called up at such a young age. So third base obviously is going to be a learning curve for him. We know that it will. He's still young. However, the Mets, when you talk about what they were lacking in their offense, this is a really, really good hitter to put third, possibly fourth, whatever, because of how good he is with runners in scoring position, how good of a contact bat he is, not to mention the sneaky pop that he can have because of the quick bat he has, because of the exit velocities, which are well above average. Evan, I'll go to you first on this one. It's a little unconventional, geez, to obviously see Bo Bichette as the automatic pivot from Kyle Tucker, because we knew that they had a lot of infielders. We knew. And they had a lot of infielders that they had to send out, and we'll get into that. But obviously, when it comes to Bo Bichette at third, you hope that, with him being a shortstop, being a good athlete, it can help them defensively, having 4 shortstops now on their infield. But it's more about the Mets offense and how much deeper he can help make this lineup in compliments to the other additions, obviously. But also, this is a really good hitter. He's been a really, really good hitter throughout his entire career. And again, I think that this is the type of thing that David Stearns was looking for, of a jack-of-all-trades hitter, similar to a guy like Jorge Polanco.
Yeah, I remember when this dropped, I sent in the group chat saying, what the fuck? Because I think all of us were equally in shock when they ended up pivoting to Bichette, especially because of the fact that, like we've talked about throughout the offseason, the comments are saying the run prevention thing, and how Stearns preached that in his end of the year press conference. But like you've also mentioned, we've seen him do this in Milwaukee, where he moves guys that are athletes to lesser taxing positions, which is similar to what he's doing here with the strong up the middle defense, which got stronger with a trade they made that we'll talk about later. But this is what he wanted to do. And at first, when I saw the signing, I was like, maybe he's the DH. But then I'm like, that wouldn't make a lot of sense, though, because why would you give more money to Bo Bichette for the 1 year than, give more money, go the extra mile to maybe get Kyle Schwarber here, who is a more proven DH and a better power hitter. But like you said, for this lineup, they needed someone like Bo Bichette. And Matt and I have kind of been talking on our show about where we want to see Bo Bichette hit. And I know there was that whole thing that Mendoza apparently said on a podcast that he probably would pencil it as Lindor, Soto, Bichette. I would personally want to see Bo Bichette in front of Juan Soto, because you're giving him more pitches in the zone to potentially hit with the threat of Juan Soto behind him. I'm sure it will go well either way if you put him third, because it will give him an opportunity to drive more runs in. But yeah, they needed someone that could hit with runners in scoring position. They needed someone that could hit against lefties, and someone that is able to actually hit fastballs, which is a problem this team had as well. And Bo Bichette checks all of those boxes. So from the hitting profile, it makes sense. We'll see what happens with the defense there. But like there was a comment earlier, he's already down in Port St. Lucie training at third base, which is really good to hear. So we'll see how it ends up going. I think it will be better than most people expect. I mean, we've seen guys make the switch before. I'm not telling you, he is A-Rod and he's going to go over the third base and play elite defense. But, we've seen guys make the move from shortstop to third base before. Manny Machado's another one as well who did that. So I'm willing to see what happens. But overall, from the hitting profile, they needed someone like this in the lineup.
Yeah, I mean, Bo Bichette has his flaws. Andrew, we've talked about this before, but the hitting definitely isn't one of them. Let me just say one thing. You barely see all triple threats be dominated the way that Bo Bichette does. If you were talking about for overall quality of contact, sure. If you want to just go strictly batting average, okay? Strictly batting average. Against fastballs last year, 307. Against breaking balls, 315. Against off-speed pitches, 319. So this is the most balanced that it gets, obviously. And we do know that he's more of a gap-to-gap hitter. Like we've talked about that before, obviously. However, I will say that if you're looking at somebody who's so potent like this with runners in scoring position and you're plugging him in to batting third into your lineup, instead of the last guy, who I won't mention by name because he's gone, who has streaky tendencies, and I'm not saying that is it. He's had streaky tendencies and he has his weaknesses. But when you have a guy whose bat can cover pretty much anywhere around the plate, it's definitely encouraging, especially when you put that bat behind Juan Soto. Third base discussion is a little bit different, obviously, but either way, I know you're a big Bo Bichette guy. So the Mets add him in. We'll see what, the future holds here, but he's going to be your third baseman, Andrew. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I was at work when it happens because, of course, David Stearns either has to do it when I'm laying in bed trying to watch Netflix or I'm busting my ass at work. God forbid he just signs somebody in the middle of the day, right when everybody's home, relaxing. But, yeah, when we saw the notification, I instantly went, like, Evan, like, what the hell? Like, where is he? Like, again, is he the DH? And he can't play second base. He played second base in the World Series. He's not playing second base here. And I wouldn't say it's a perfect fit, but you needed a right-handed bat who can drive and runs. And it's going to be a different version of a right-handed bat. Again, Mr. Cheetos, he's going to hit Cheeto nukes. That, have fun. That's gone. Now this is going to be your grandfather's favorite player. And my friend had a buddy to text me. He goes, how much Keith Hernandez is going to jack him off all season. And especially if he's batting behind Soto and how many RBI, how many little just dink right field, through the second base, first base, gap singles is going to drive it around. You know how much Keith's going to love Bo Bichette. So, in that aspect, again, it's a different look. But again, kills left-handed pitching, hits fastballs, hits running in the scoring position. It's everything this team failed at last year. So, it's a good fit. Again, the defensive part, it's going to happen. But again, it looks to most of the stuff that we've seen, it's more range problems with Bo. So, now you also have, Francisco Lindor next to him. He can be like, you don't got to go left. I'll do, Lindor will be like, I'll take care of everything going left. You guard the line and just kind of, do you. But again, offensively, it fits. It's a right-handed bat. And especially, he's going to have tons of RBI situations with Lindor and Soto behind him. And that's why I want him hitting behind Soto because, okay, you walk Soto, Bichette, you're going to bring Bichette, who's one of the best, risk guys or guy who hits with guys on base. You don't want to do that. If he's hitting in front of Soto, yes, you protect Bichette. But then it's like, okay, then you drop the Polanco or potentially Lou Bob or Alvarez, whoever else is hitting behind him. So I do want him hitting behind Soto. But again, it's a different look. Again, it's adding more contact to this team without completely sacrificing power. Because if Grandpa's got their way, this would have been Luis Garcia instead of Bo Bichette. Again, where they're not going completely, let's just get contact. No, let's, have a little aura, have a little power too. And have a little clutch factor because, again, this guy could have, won a World Series if it wasn't for, Miguel Rojas. The fact that Miguel Rojas has saved Shohei Ohtani's legacy, shocker. But, again, it's baseball. But, again, it fits perfectly. He's going to have plenty of swag. He's got a great nickname. Already bought the merch, so I'm happy. Is it just a one-year deal? Probably. Does it also get us all a little excited to, grab Philly by the balls and take their toy, being like, "Oh, you thought this was going to be your toy?" Yoink.
That's another detail I didn't even mention.
That adds to it. So, again, it gives Philly, a nice shaped cake of nothingness, and we got Bo Bichette. So it was a great signing, great overall vibes, and making the city of Philadelphia. You would think we signed Mike Trout with some of the responses from that, that media, but again, we love laughing at their tears. But overall, it's a one-year deal, a lot of money. But again, it's going to be fun. It's going to look different, and when he opts out and gets, $700 million next year from the Phillies, it'll be all right.
Like I said, with batting third, and again, this is not all the details, but let's just say by zone, I can pop it here up on the screen. Here's your old three-hole hitter. Lots of swings and misses in that other batter's box. Lots up and away, down and in. You go to Bo Bichette, that looks a lot different. A lot different. So again, I'm not saying that it's a complete upgrade, but I'm saying that it plugs in the deficiency that you had last year.
Boner.
And listen, I know that other guy is perfect. I get it. And he can do no wrong.
You're saying that there's better players than Pete Alonso in Major League Baseball? That's fake news. Not possible.
I thought we were not supposed to. We're not supposed to say it. Well, anyways,
that is true. He's like,
Yeah.
Cheeto Bear.
Yeah. Matt, I'll go to you here with Bo Bichette. Obviously, from what we have heard from, Bo Bichette, we've heard great clubhouse guy too. That's another thing. Wants to compete. They have said about his defense, like I said, they said his hands are the main reason as to why, his quick hands are the main reason as to why they believe that the transition is going to be smooth. We just saw that he is already in Port St. Lucie doing third base, doing reps at third base. So it could work out. Will it? I don't know. However, we will see. But the lineup definitely got better.
Yeah, similarly to all you guys, when we got the Will Salmon notification that Mets signed Bo Bichette, I was like, what? Because like I said before in the intro, it came out of nowhere, and this is typical of with David Stern's signing, where just there's no connection to him via social media, and then all of a sudden, boom, Bo Bichette signs. But even though we did get the news later on, even though the media will say that it was a panic signing after Kyle Tucker signed, but no, the Mets and Stearns did lay the groundwork from the winter meeting with the Bo Bichette signing. And also, like I said, it is a nice little caveat that they did take it from the Phillies. But like I said, my initial reaction was, and listen, yes, $42 million AAV for Bo Bichette, it is a lot, but when you're signing him to only a 3-year deal, which technically, if all things go right, it's only a 1-year deal, and whether we go from there and, maybe the Mets re-sign Bo Bichette again, we don't know. Obviously, we have to get through this season first before anything happens. But like I said, when it happened, I looked at it in two ways. I liked it from an offensive standpoint. I was skeptical of it from a defensive standpoint because obviously we heard the whole, run prevention thing, and we know that Bo Bichette is not necessarily the greatest shortstop defensively. But again, like Evan mentioned, like you guys mentioned, we've seen Stearns do this in Milwaukee before where, he builds the spine up the middle defensively well, and then he takes athletes from more guys up the middle, whether it's second base, shortstop, and he moves them more to the corners. Obviously, we saw that with Polanco this year. He's going to play first base, and now Bo Bichette's going to play third base. I am a little more confident, though, that Bo Bichette will at least transition a little bit better to third base, just simply based off the fact to where, you don't need as much range at third base compared to what you're doing at shortstop. And the Mets also did bring in Kai Correa earlier this year. We know that Kai Correa was more, heavily astute for his defensive positioning and defensive allocation to, guys learning new positions from his time in San Francisco with the Giants and his time in Cleveland with the Guardians. So I am, a bit more confident that Bo Bichette can transition at least a bit more better to third base compared to what I originally thought. And listen, like I said with Bichette, I don't need Bo Bichette to be a Platinum Gold Glove winner at third base. I don't need him to be Matt Chapman, Manny Machado. Would I like that? Yeah, but similarly to like what we saw with Brett Baty the last couple of years, just be reliable at third base. So like I said, if Bo Bichette's giving you reliable defense at third base, I think we will all take that because especially when you look at the offensive side, Bo Bichette's going to produce. And now that's where, I'm going to talk about more the offensive side is Bo Bichette, I like him because, and this is like a bunch of things that we've talked before in the past on other podcasts, but a lot of the tools that past Mets offenses have lacked, Bo Bichette has in terms of hitting lefties, hitting well with runners in scoring position, hitting fastballs, and not only does he hit well with fastballs, but he hits breaking pitches well, he hits off-speed pitches well. The only thing that's kind of different compared to Bo Bichette to where the Mets have kind of targeted other guys, because we've seen guys with Polanco, with guys like Semien, guys like Robert. Those guys, when all things are clicking, those guys are more pull hitters and especially pulling the ball in the air. Bo Bichette's more of, like you said, Carson, he's more of a gap-to-gap hitter, and I know we've kind of said that we want to see the Mets be more of a of a pull hitter team. But when you are building a lineup, you need different, archetypes of hitters. But the thing, like with Bo Bichette compared to like what we saw with guys like Eric Chavez last year, and now he was teaching guys to go to the opposite field. Chavez was teaching guys to go to the opposite field, but totally, disregarding doing damage and and pulling the ball and getting the better results out of things, which is like if you pull the ball, you're gonna hit it harder, and you're probably gonna hit it farther as well and harder. So. But like I said with Bichette, because even when you look on Baseball Savant, when you compare it, the batted ball, the pull air is the lowest, 13.2, straight up in the air, 21.1%, and then oppo air is 18.4. But like I said, if Bo Bichette's going to give you, damage to all areas of the field, I think you more take that compared to, this guy's just more of that, Luis Ariz type where he's going to put it more in the opposite field, but they're going to be more blue pits types. Bichette will actually do damage, like I said. And again, he's more of a contact hitter, but we know Bichette can also hit home runs as well, like what we saw in Game 7 where he hit the 3-run home run off Ohtani.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is a competitive hitter 24/7, and that's what I really, really do like, obviously. And the quality of contact is good. It's not like this dink and dunk type of stuff where he can provide a lot of different things. And not to mention when you're talking about how much you have Soto and Lindor, who are, conventionally prolific in their own ways offensively, where you talk about, Lindor being a 30-30 or Soto being, being such a threat that he walks so much and he's, on pace to walk as much as Barry Bonds, or, he hits 40 home runs, 120 RBIs, whatever you want to say. Again, I like it. The only thing that I'm skeptical about is the defense. That's literally it. And like I said, you guys already reiterated it before, where David Stearns has done things like this before. Sure-handed defenders up the middle, and then he puts athletes all over the diamond in less taxing positions. Again, when you're talking about overall athletes, you have Polanco, Lindor, Simeon, now Bichette. Those four all started off as shortstops. So they were all scouted as athletes that can be shortstops and also have, the body type or body frame to be shortstops and be athletic. I'm a little bit more peculiar about the situation with Polanco at first than Bo Bichette at third, mainly because I think that Bichette, it's more just about the angle as to which he throws, not to mention all the range. I would say when it comes to his arm, I'd say his arm is a little bit wild as well. So I'm interested to see how that works. And if not, and it seems like the guy that was playing third base last year, it seems like he is staying with the team. I don't know what the future holds with that. And I personally don't get it, and we can get into that. But again, Bo Bichette, great contact hitter, great quality of contact. I don't need, constant, everybody's a 40 home run bat and everyone just swings for the fences. I need a guy that prioritizes quality of contact, and that's what you get from a guy like Bo Bichette, who is very, very balanced. And when you have prolific hitters like Soto and Lindor, and even the other guy that they could possibly see be prolific because of the ceiling that he does have, it does make you feel a lot better. And it does make you feel a lot better as to this lineup being a lot deeper. Either way, let's get into the chat here. I just want to bring some stuff up. Hornet saying, so does this mean that Vientos is going to DH or is he trade bait? We have absolutely no idea. It seems like the Mets mindset right now is to kind of like rotate DHs, whether you're talking about Vientos at DH, Polanco at DH. I don't want to see Baty in the DH position. Or you also have some other guys at the DH position. I think we should get into Baty next.
Yeah, just like get Soto maybe to put Taylor out there in right field to get better defense every now and then, or just take Lindor off his feet every now and then. I don't know. That's the one thing I'm still a little uneasy about with this roster, because in an ideal world, I would have liked for them to have acquired someone that could either be more of a primary first baseman than Polanco DHs, or get a legit DH. Because, I mean, how many times have we talked about that it would be nice to see them add a legit DH. But yeah, like that's the one thing though that I do feel worried about. But hopefully with this new hitting coach, you can maybe get something from Vientos. I don't think you're going to get what you got from him in 2024, but if you could get even some semblance of that, it's better than what you've got from Starling Marte over the past 2 years at least.
Yeah. It's better than what they have gotten from this DH position since it was implemented in the National League. I mean, it's just been so starved for a DH. And again, I think that Vientos is a perfect DH if he's actually hitting. If he's not hitting, he's likely the worst player in all of baseball. And you don't know which one you're going to get. You really don't, because he does have holes in his game. Unlike a guy like Bo Bichette, who is very versatile offensively. I really do like, the 2-strike hitting, the overall contact hitting. The quality of contact is great. I mean, I think that this is a very good signing to connect all of the problems that this Mets lineup has had over the years of swing decisions and pitch recognition and over, like, it fills in a lot of gaps. And I'm not going to say that he is completely disciplined. However, he knows how to put bat to ball, and he can put bat to ball at will. And that's the main thing as to why I think a lot of the old-fashioned fans, or the get off my lawn fans that we like to talk about, they were, I think that they were excited to see Bo Bichette be added to this roster after they missed out on Tucker, because, Chief Cohen's the cheap bastard. But, when they got Bo Bichette, this is a good batting average guy. He's a good contact hitting guy. So, this I feel like came in at the best timing for all of the more analytical fans, the more advanced fans, the more modern day fans, and also some fans that still believe that batting average is the most relevant stat known to man, and we don't have other numbers that can back up for player evaluation. So again, I think again we'll see. There's plenty of examples of guys making positional moves. I think that again, with what Stearns has displayed in Milwaukee, I do believe that shortstops being the best athletes that they are, it makes a lot more sense for their transition to new positions. When it comes to new positions for a guy like Brett Baty, who I do want to get into as of right now of his role, I just want to, get it out of the way before we get into all these other moves. This obviously affects Brett Baty the most because Bo Bichette is going to be their starting third baseman. I don't think they're going to platoon for a guy who's making $42 million. And that puts Brett Baty kind of in this utility role that maybe Jeff McNeil was in. I wish I didn't say his name again. I'm trying, Andrew, I'm trying to hold on to they're dead to us, but it's really, really hard. Either way, with Baty's role, Will Salmon put out some stuff. We saw some stuff from John Heyman. John Heyman said the Mets envision Brett Baty playing multiple positions, including left field. He said that on X, like right after the Mets signed Bo Bichette. Will Salmon via The Athletic said that with Bichette ticketed for third base, the Mets want Brett Baty to perform the utility role that formerly was envisioned for Jeff McNeil. League sources said the Mets still view Baty as a valuable piece of their roster. Of course, the Mets are looking for a more established outfielder or a starting pitcher. Baty would represent a helpful trade chip, but between the designated hitter spot and Baty's ability to play multiple positions, there could be a path for plenty of ABs. David Stearns said at Bichette's presser that I think Brett has the ability, and we're going to challenge him to have the ability to play a bunch of different positions. We know he can play third base. We proved that he proved that a lot last year. I think we're going to add. First and. I think we're going to add first and left to his toolkit as well. I've been very open that Carson Benj is going to have a chance to make this team. We've got a lot of people in our organization who believe Brett Baty is going to be a very good left fielder. Once he gets some experience there, we have some options out there. Now, here's the deal with this. We also saw from a report from Will Salmon later on that that Stearns actually called Brett Baty, had a conversation with him after they signed Bo Bichette, saying basically that you are seen as a valuable piece still to this team, and we're going to have you kind of like in that utility role. That's a sharp thing to happen, to be honest, for a guy such as a former relief pitcher who said that Stearns barely cares about the players, but whatever. Anyways, besides the point, let me give my opinion out here first and foremost, okay? Let me just do it. How do I say this without everybody just completely blowing up at me? You know what? I don't even give a shit. What seriously is the point of keeping Brett Baty? Really, at this current moment. And I understand Bo Bichette might only be here for 1 year. I get it. I understand it. However, when you look at this certain picture, right? And I get that the Mets are very known to put guys into positions or put into the depth of the lineup because they're like, oh, well, we can't miss this bat. First of all, this bat is not that good. It isn't. And for those of you who will tell me it is, I don't know what to tell you. It's had 2 good stretches throughout his entire career, and both of them were in last year. So forgive me if I'm skeptical of that production continuing when the guy still pounds the ball into the ground 60% of the time. If you're going to put him in left field, and you've already been public about putting Benj out there and giving Benj leeway to possibly make the opening day roster, why is he in that conversation? Why are we putting 2 young players up against each other? Like, we didn't learn about the playing time with Vientos and Baty and Mauricio and Acuna. Like we didn't learn. Also, why is he going out to left field when his arm is weaker than Nimmo's? That doesn't make any sense. How is that possible? I'm sitting here and just watching them continue to do this on repeat. I love the mindset that they've taken this offseason. I definitely take it into account. But there's always just one thing that I don't understand why they continue to repeat. Jeff McNeil, we need his bat in the lineup. Put him in left field. Dom Smith, we need his bat in the lineup. Put him in left field. J.D. Davis, we need his bat in the lineup. Put him in left field. How many times are we going to do this, people? How many times? And this bat is really not that good, people. It really isn't. It is a career 88 weighted runs created plus. For those of you who don't know about weighted runs created plus, that is 12% below the league average. He's had over 1,000 plate appearances. Trade him. Please trade him. Please. Just do it. Sell high. Do it. Please. That's all I'm asking. I don't understand the need for a utility role for a young player who needs to play every day in order to give you that sort of everyday production. The fact that we are looking at Baty as a utility infielder, utility outfielder, give me a break. Give me a break. This is a ridiculous cop-out to the Mets just wanting young players on their roster who don't fit. They just don't fit. I don't see this as a fit whatsoever. I don't get it. I don't think Brett Baty is that good of a player overall. I've already been public about that. But, recency bias will tell you he's amazing. And the fact that he is put into this high regard as to, we're only trading him for a frontline starter. Who do you think Brett Baty is? Who exactly do you think Brett Baty is? I don't get it. I will never see it. I never will. I think we all know that I never will. But Andrew, if you want to rebut that, go ahead and do it. I don't understand what the outlook here is for Brett Baty when you just gave $42 million to a guy to play third base. You also have other guys that you are very, very high on in your farm system. How? How is this? How is this the move for him? I get he has one option left. You can option him down to AAA. But, where are we going with this? I feel like we've done this so many times already. And we're like, oh, well, it didn't work with McNeil, it didn't work with this, it didn't work with that. How many times are we going to continue to not sell high on someone when we know that there's a direct need on this team and they so regard him high as a trade? How? There's always just one thing that they just continue to refuse to do, and I don't get it. Andrew, what do you want to rebut about this? Because I know that you're the Brett Baty guy here. And I did definitely tell you, yeah, okay. Whatever. Andrew?
All right, so since the hater is done, let's look at this as a front office executive. 1, he's free. He's making nothing. Not an arbitration yet.
So is
2,
Carson Bench.
You will be the same
Move
person
on.
to complain, and exactly. 2, you would complain if they signed a Nick Madrigal or a Joey Wendell to do this same exact role, but we know there is no offensive upgrade. Yes. Is he great? No. He's free. And again, if Owen Casey, which again, we'll conference the rest of Major League Baseball. Owen Casey's a perfect example. Big super prospect, number 1 prospect, top draft pick from the Chicago Cubs. Everyone, you can't trade him for Juan Soto. You can't trade him for this. And they waited, and somehow you still were able to find a way to trade for Abel Cabrera. So there's a world where, yes, you would like to sell, and I know you're ready to ship his ass out to Guangdong. We know this. But MLB front offices don't look at it like that. They say, we got a free player who can try to play multiple positions. He showed a little bit of upside last year. You're banking on if he can be a league average bat. And how much worse, and I was listening to a podcast earlier, I forgot which one I was listening to at work. How much worse defensively can he be than Brandon Nimmo out in left field? That's the other thing.
He has a worse arm than Brandon Nimmo.
He has
a worse arm than Brandon Nimmo.
Range-wise. It's barely.
What do you mean care about range-wise?
It's barely.
Care about range-wise? Oh, let's put him in another position. Let's put him at second base. He sucks at second base.
He's got the move. He doesn't run like a Minecraft character.
He's not an
athlete. Range-wise in the outfield. That's already an upgrade. My point is, would I have sold high if they were
overcompensating, dude? I can't do it. I can't do the overcompensating.
It's a free Major League Baseball player. If you're not getting high value and selling high,
and so is Carson Bench. He's already said he wants someone on the team. That doesn't make any sense.
He needs to be in the minor leagues for 2 months. Carson and he's got a horrible name. The dude's gonna suck. Keep his ass in AAA. We need a guy with double BBL. We need a good nickname. We need a good, just great dude on this roster. Carson's a shit name. He's probably gonna suck. His swing is awful. He's trash. Leave his ass in Syracuse.
Okay, so
it is all about the BBL lovers that is Brett Baty.
If they see him, okay,
and if
they see him, and I'll get into our guests because they're enjoying this, I know. If they see him, okay, as a utility player, what the hell are you going to do with Mark Vientos, Ronnie Mauricio, who are also infielders?
That needs to go.
But they said that they're not going to do any more moves. I don't even get that.
That down there. Good.
Ken, I said that Baty's an infielder. He's a third baseman.
What do you expect?
I said he's a third. He shouldn't be playing left field. What are you listening to? Who are you listening to? Are you listening to every other word that I'm saying? You're going mute and on and mute and on? Baty's an infielder. He shouldn't be playing left field. That's what I'm saying. How many times have we seen a non-athlete with this team?
Okay.
How many times have we seen a non-athlete with this team? A non-shortstop, like we said with the 4 guys that we have here. Them just say, you know what? We love their bat. Let's put him in left field. Dom Smith, J.D. Davis. They did it with Jeff McNeil. They even thought about doing it with Vientos at one point. Remember when they played Ronnie Mauricio in left field in the minor leagues? Let it go. Let it go. Like, how much are we going to overcompensate for this guy when he's just not that good? He's 26. He's closer to 30 than me. Like, come on. I just don't get it. Like, what do people see in this? What? What does he do well? Does he run the bases well? No. Does he steal bases? No. Does he give you prolific power?
Average.
No. Does he give you good contact? No. Does he walk? No. He doesn't do anything well. I I don't get it. I don't understand how you can just keep guys around when you know that they're not capable of playing this position. And then this other, he'll play some first base too. He'll play some first base. Okay, great. Awesome. So instead of having the 6'3" guy that they were going to put at first base from those reports, the 6'3" guy that they shipped off to Sacramento, we're going to have another 6'3" guy at first base who's never played it before. So again, people have problems with Corey Polanco playing first base, but when we talk about Brett Baty at first base, do your thing, King. Slay. How does that make any sense? How? I don't get it. If you guys want to add in, please do. I don't understand how much the love is for this guy. How? What has he shown you? Nothing.
Yeah, it's hard to follow up after this. But yeah, I don't get it either, especially because of the fact that we've heard that his trade value is pretty high on the market. It's like, this team has other areas where they could potentially address, and I get you don't want to trade a guy just for the sake of trading a guy, but it's odd to me that you signed Bo Bichette to all this money. You have guys like Reimer down in the farm system where, next year you can maybe move Polanco to third and then have Clifford play first base, however you want to fill in the roster there if you want to save some money. It's just odd to me that they signed Bo Bichette this money, and then Brett Baty, let's put him out in left field. We trust Carson Bench, but let's put Brett Baty out in left field. Yeah. It just, I don't know. It's so odd to me because, like you said, they've done this movie too many times where they've played guys out of position in left field instead of selling high on them when they could have got maybe a good return. I feel like a year from now, we're going to have the same conversation that we had about Dom Smith, that we had about Jeff McNeil, that we've had about JD Davis, that instead of selling high on these guys, they decided to wait, and Brett Baty's value diminishes down to nothing because no one's going to want a 26-year-old who has a league average year under his belt at best. And then again, the unknown. Like I said, I get not trading him just for the sake of trading him. You have to get the right piece, but
sure, 100%.
It's odd to me to not sell high when you clearly don't value him enough that you're signing guys at his primary position. Like, that's the part that just makes no sense to me at all.
It's the fact of, like, I don't understand putting a non-athlete in a different position, like putting a non-shortstop or a non-guy, a non-center fielder or whatever. Like, I don't understand doing that when you also do something for, again, to put a guy's bat in the lineup, which is what they kind of did in the offensive approach with Jeff McNeil in center field or whatever. Like, it's a gimmick. It's not even like it's a gimmick.
Blade,
and when you get
times, sorry,
that's the thing. It's like when you get Benj up here, what the hell is Baty going to do? Is he going to go back down to AAA? Probably will, because he will be there by May. We all know he will, because his bat's not good. But hey, prove me wrong. Go ahead and prove me wrong, even though he's been with this organization since 2019, and he still can't lift a goddamn baseball. So I don't see what they're seeing here. I still will never do, but it's whatever. Continue, Evan.
I was just going to say, to Blade's comment, how many fans have complained that the pitching's not good enough? The pitching's not good enough. Get pitchers with control.
I understand this. I understand not trading him. And obviously with them getting Freddy Peralta, adding to the rotation, we'll get into those signings. I get it. But what is Ronnie Mauricio and Mark Vientos still doing here? Like, that just... Not only does that mean you put him out of position, but you're also clogging up a bench of infielders who, again, Mauricio, who knows what he can move as this at this current moment with coming off the ACL injury, and then Vientos, who's a DH, and then you also have the catcher and the fourth outfielder, which Tyrone Taylor and Luis Torrens play well. So it's just clogging up a bench, too, where someone's got to go. It wasn't just going to be Acuna or McNeil. Like, I don't understand where they're going to go with this. And it makes absolutely no sense because, again, these young players still, Vientos, Mauricio, even Benj, these guys have to play every day in order to develop properly. And they're not going to. You can't have just kids fill out a bench. That doesn't make any sense. Matt, I'll go to you as well to this. It's just, I love how this is all forming together, but then there's just like this one little part where I'm like, what the hell are they going to do with this whole situation? I'm tired of seeing the revolving door of, well, we're going to platoon 2 young guys. That doesn't work for anyone, whether it's Brett Baty or not.
All right, I'm going to try to break this down in a way to where, because I'm neither a Brett Baty lover, I'm neither a Brett Baty hater either. I'm just in the middle on him. To where I look at this is, and I do agree with Andrew per se to where, you know, when you compare him to McNeil, because that's what essentially Baty's becoming. He's McBaty now, which I know, Carson, you love that because you're combining Jeff McNeil and Brett Baty into one guy. I know that's like, that probably, you should get a McBaty jersey actually on top of that. But I mean, look, how I view Baty is when they first signed Bichette, I thought Baty was going to get traded. I either said he was going to get traded for a starter or he was going to get traded for outfield help. Now, obviously, they didn't trade him for a starter because they traded Carson's favorite prospect of all time in Jet Williams, the next Jose Altuve, to get Freddy Peralta. And then, obviously, they acquired Luis Robert, in which they sent also another small player, Luis Acuna, to the south side of Chicago to play for the White Sox so he could, you know, be with the other Spirit Halloween employees, as Andrew likes to call them. It's just... Listen, and like I said with Baty, he's cheap. He's quote unquote versatile, if you want to say, because yes, he could technically play left field. He could play third. He could play second base. He could play first base, even though he's not great or excellent in any of those positions per se.
So basically, overcompensating, like I said. Exactly.
Yeah. What I think the plan is with Baty for now, I think because even though Stearns has talked up Carson Bench, and yes, Carson Bench is the better player over Brett Baty, and I think he will be. And like I said, even though Stearns has talked up Bench and he said, you know, he wants him to be on the major league roster ideally, and we've all said that ideally we want Bench at least to spend the first couple months in AAA just to get, you know, some reps in, and for him just to, you know, be a little bit more ready by the time he gets till he gets to the major leagues. Maybe Stearns looking at this, okay, I'm going to put Baty here in left field in more of this versatile role just as a precaution, as a safety net, just in case Benj isn't necessarily ready out of the gates, because who knows, maybe if Benj is ready and he comes up early, maybe we do see an in-season trade where they do deal Brett Baty. Obviously, we don't know, and we don't know how much Stearns was shopping Baty either. I know the rumors were that, you know, his market was high, but maybe Stearns looked at it and you know, he didn't find a trade that suited well enough to where they got something good back in return where they're sending Brett Baty to another team. And again, I do agree with you guys that you shouldn't just trade somebody just for the sake of it, because that doesn't make any sense. But I also look at this to where, and again, this goes more in point to where, you know, because we're obviously going to talk about it with more Luis Robert. The Mets, a lot of the times they've had, especially when you looked at their older rosters, they have lacked at least reliable bats in the bottom part of the order. And listen, I know that Brett Baty's not the most analytical darling when it comes to hitting. I get that he's had his up and downs when he's been up here in the major leagues. But I always said, even last year when he was having his great spring training, I was like, okay, if Brett Baty's going to the season and he's giving you, you know, around 20 home runs and he's giving you around the 750 OPS, I'll take that from Brett Baty, because to me, I view Brett Baty as just depth. I don't think he's a great player. I also don't think he's just flat out garbage. I just think he's depth. He's decent depth with which every major league team needs. So, and listen, at the end of the season, even though, like I said, he did have his stretches where he was really bad, like at the beginning of the season last year, but he finished with a 748 OPS, 254 batting average, and 18 home runs. Again, not great, not terrible, just decent. Again, I just think they're viewing Brett Baty as, for now, he's going to be decent, reliable depth up until Carson Bench comes up here. and then we'll see where they go from there. And maybe what's it called? Also, Troy Snicker, maybe Jeff Albert, maybe they look at Brett Baty and say, "Oh, listen, we could tinker with the swing, and maybe we could fix him to be more of a productive power hitter." Maybe, and listen, I want to give Brett Baty that chance because I think under a new coaching regime, he should have that opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. The whole hitting profile of Troy Snicker and Jeff Albert of the lift and pole, something we all know that Brett Baty is so good at doing.
No, listen. I'm not saying that's going to work out that way.
I get it. I understand it, but he sucks. Like, let's be real for a second.
No, but I'm just looking at this from just a non-hater Brett Baty perspective, to where I think to where, like what Andrew said, where he's looking at it from an executive point of view. That's where I'm trying to look at it, to where, okay, Brett
Baty fan.
He has positives, he has faults. Let's see what happens. Listen, again, I don't think Brett Baty's going to become anything special. Like I said, I think he's just a mid-average depth player at best.
Yeah, but this is the thing. It's like when we look at him as depth, he's still in that younger realm of less than, like the 1,000 plate appearances in the MLB. Like, if he doesn't play every day, I don't think you're going to get the best out of him. And to be honest, when he plays every day, he's still going to be an average player because that's the best that we have seen from him at best so far in the major leagues, where he's struggled a lot at the major league level. So when people tell me it's just depth, like I said, young players can't be your depth. They have to play every day. And then when you talk about it in terms of like of this argument, why is Mauricio and Vientos still here? If you're going to, like, that doesn't make any sense to me, where it's like, oh, well, let's just fill the bench with young players. That's going to do nothing for them. They're not going to develop. I mean, we say this with the Rangers. Sitting in the press box doesn't help at all. It's like they're just, it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, I feel like we're clogging up something for absolutely no reason. That doesn't make any sense.
I don't know. Again, I'm just trying to look at this from like a level-headed perspective, to where maybe how David Stearns views it. But listen, I do agree. I think Brett Baty does have to play at least a decent amount for him to show something. But maybe Stearns just doesn't view him as a prospect anymore, because again, he's had pretty much 2.5, 3. Maybe like even Baty views himself as just. I don't know. Obviously, like I said, I'm not Stearns. I'm not the one who makes these roster moves. Obviously, yes, is it a little bit confusing with the fact that you're gonna have Vientos here, you're gonna have Mauricio there, you're gonna have Baty there? Yeah, it is.
That's what I mean. If you want Baty coming off your bench, if you want him to be the first guy coming off your bench, whatever. 26 years old, he's had plenty of experience in the major leagues. There's always injuries too. Maybe he becomes a starting third baseman. Bo gets injured. We've seen Bo get hurt before. Somebody mentioned in the chat. Simeon is not fragile, by the way, so don't even get me started. That was a freak accident last year. He's known to be an Iron Man. Either way,
I mean, I'll quote that. It's a 35-year-old putting a Met uniform on. So let's,
Yes, I know.
Might not be
he's going to come in with a full walking boot like Jed Lowry did. I know. We know what's going to happen in spring training. But the thing is, it's like, I just, what the hell? Like, there's just this one part of the roster. I'm like, what the hell are we doing? Exactly. He's been up here for 4 years. Enough already. This is what I mean. It's like, how long are we going to do this? He was drafted in 2019. Like, for God's sake, how long? How long are we going to do this?
Listen, I do agree with you, Carson. Like, I do agree with you. Like, in a perfect world, I would have traded him because, again, I would have traded because of his value being up. Again, because I don't think he's going to get anything higher than this. Obviously, maybe we'll see with the coaching differences. I don't know what's going to happen. But, again, I think Baty... If anything, for the rest of his major league career, I view him as a 750 OPS guy with 18 home runs, or like 20 to 25 home runs in that range. So yeah, I would have traded him in a perfect world. Obviously, Stearns maybe tried to trade him. He just didn't like what he was getting in return. I don't know. I'm not the one who makes that decision in the end.
And I see it as an example of Dom Smith walked so Baty can run. That's what I see. But
or
again,
someone said before, Jeff McNeil with manners.
Jeff McNeil with manners. It was that Odd. I love Odd. Odd's one of the best chatters. Yep. McBaty sandwich is bland with extra mayo. Absolutely. It's just I don't get it. I don't get it. I never will. I never will. I never will. Whatever. I also just don't understand them perceiving him as, well, we're only trading him for a frontline starting pitcher. All right, cool. A guy who's a 26-year-old flop first-round guy who's been a professional for 7 years already and has shown remotely nothing at the major league level aside from 2 scattered months last year. Cool. That's what we are regarding as the highest asset to trade. Absolutely. Makes absolutely no sense. Whatever.
Look, we've acquired an 8, and we're yelling about Baty. That's what.
Let's talk about someone who actually is going to be playing their position. How about that? Let's talk about someone who's actually going to be playing their position. That being Luis Robert, who the Mets acquired from the White Sox, somebody that they have been attached to for a while. As we know, this is a big swing for upside, as the Mets have acquired center fielder Luis Robert from the Chicago White Sox in exchange for Luis Angel Acuna and right-handed prospect Truman Pauly, who was their 12th round pick last year during the June amateur draft. Now, as for Luis Robert, like we have talked about before, we have discussed him plenty of times before. Last 2 seasons have not been great offensively for him. However, it does help that this will be a deeper lineup. He has better protection. He likely will have to be the 6th or 7th best hitter. I know. The 7th best hitter. Don't do it. Nick, don't do it. Anyways. Last year, again, like we said, 84 weighted runs created plus, only 14 home runs, 53 RBIs, /223, 297, 364 was not great. However, there are parts to his game that do fit for this team, like we have said, and what we were talking about with left-handed pitching, he slashed a 258, 369, 473 with a 130 weighted runs created plus against left-handed pitching. And then also in the second half, he really did pick it up. A 126 weighted runs created plus, showed a lot of the power, was hitting a lot more for contact, wasn't striking out as much, brought those numbers down. We still do see a little bit of promise in terms of his batted ball data, 60th percentile in barrel rate. We saw his quality of contact go up in the second half as well, but we all know that the main asset here is the overall base running, which he was able to steal 33 bases last year with top 10% speed. Not to mention, you also saw elite defense, a +7 outs above average across more than 850 innings logged in center field. Like I said, 90th percentile sprint speed. And as for his contract, the Mets will be absorbing all of his $20 million salary for 2026, and then they will also withhold his club option for 2027. So if he sucks, they get rid of him. If he's good, they can keep him for another year. And it keeps it on the short term. Also blocks out a possibility of Benj in center field, who is not really seen as a traditional run preventer per scouts and more seen as a corner guy. Either way, Robert, again, it has been a struggle for him. It really has. Andrew, I know that you have talked about bringing in Luis Robert, taking a flyer on him. It's a steep price, obviously, but it's not long-term. We'll see where this goes, obviously. However, he's in a lot better of a situation than he was where he had to basically be the guy in the White Sox, where, you know, one of the worst teams in all of baseball for the past few years, in comparison to here, where he got about 7th, and you also can see a possibility of 30 potential if he taps into it, because he still has a lot of talent. We know that he does. He's a highly regarded prospect for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, he obviously has an MVP type season and hasn't been since. It's a perfect floor, because at least the type of player he's acquiring, the floor is you got an elite defensive center fielder who at least can hit 20 homers. So he's a better version of Tyrone Taylor, which is what your floor is. If you saw Tyrone Taylor's a great defensive center fielder, but swings an absolute pool noodle. So at least if he's going to swing a pool noodle, at least when you make contact, make it go over the fence. And that's at least the bare minimum you're going to get for Robert. while also having the upside of potentially being an MVP candidate. Like, I think like we're gonna have that conversation probably closer to spring training. Like, there are 3 big X factors to make this team a legit contender, and Luis Robert is one of, if not one or two. Because if Luis Robert is 35-40% of that 2023 version, where you're getting elite defensive center field with plus power, 30-30 potential, that could shift how we look at this offense. Like, and like you said, he's not coming in right away, so he can go sit at the bottom of the lineup and hit in front of Brett Baty and set him up and steal some bases for the RBI situations. But yet, he has that ability that, like, he's going to go into the season batting 7th.
Yeah, just to ground into double plays.
Yeah,
I'm sure. Sorry, couldn't help myself. Go.
And if everything goes well, there's a potential he could be hitting cleanup in this lineup if he hits what he was in 2023. So it's a boom or bust. It's a 1-year deal, and you're getting him out of, again, like you said, the literal embodiment of Kmart, and you put him next to Juan Soto, put him put him around Francisco Lindor. He's got friends again. Like, I made that joke about when he got called up, he had a group of friends that, they made the playoffs in 2020, made the playoffs again in 2022, and then all his friends just died, and he was left on an island by himself at Kmart. Now, you put him in a situation where you got leadership, you have hopefully a winning organization and winning, culture, as, my favorite word. It's a slow risk with the rewards being not generational, but an MVP candidate, and there's nothing wrong with that. And if he sucks, guess what? You decline the player option, he goes and signs with the Phillies next year. Like, that's the worst case scenario, where this isn't you're taking on a 7-8 year commitment. It's a guaranteed 1 year. And if he's good, guess what? You get him for $20 million, and especially, well, God, we're not going to play baseball next year, but, in a normal year, you're getting a below market value, especially the way contracts are going. So, and especially in center field, go look at, there's only, 3 to 4 good center fielders in baseball? Mm-hmm. Everyone else is either a great defender or it can hit but can't field. So, again, it's there's not enough talent in center field to have the upside, and I'd rather do this than, we brought back Harrison Bader, even though he made a couple adjustments. We're like, okay, or, hey, we brought in Jake Myers. Like Myers is fine. This is the best. You're getting excitement because you can drool over the bat flips and the 40 nukes and 40 steals while also potentially looking at, Jose Siri. And you're just like, yeah, that's Mets center field. They're throwing him in the graveyard.
I mean, I think we all see a possibility of this going well or not going well at all. But I will read off his career numbers throughout his entire career, regressing to the means. Let's just say that, and I'll swing it over to you guys. Career 259. 313, 455, a 110 weighted runs created plus. Do we think that is possible from Luis Robert? I'd say so, right? Like, I would say so. If you get even more, I'd say that that's an added bonus. But when you're talking about a bat like that in center field, like you said, where there's not many offensive talents, not many. There's a top, 10% there. Yeah, there's like 3 or 4. Along with the elite defense, the great base running, I think that that's possible. I do think that you can get a 110 bat from a guy like Robert inclusive to 30 stolen bases. Great defense in center field. Good arm in center field. He has those tools to do so, and he doesn't really need to do that much because he's not going to be, he needs to be like the 6th best hitter on this team, which I think is plausible. It really can. Evan?
Yeah, I had my questions about this, especially at the deadline. I was very vocal about how I didn't want Robert, and I was fucking sure as hell wrong for thinking Mullins was the safer bet than Robert. There are flashes that we saw right before the trade deadline of Robert being the player that he was. I think in the second half in general, he was well above league average in pretty much every hitting category, if I'm not mistaken. And the thing that I warmed up to though at the deadline was because the whole thing was, would you trade Vientos for him? I think that was the conversation we had on that deadline panel. And we all came to the conclusion where at best you're getting, or, at worst you're getting good defense with Robert. At worst, Vientos is a better hitter. So we would rather take the gamble there on Robert because of the fact that at least when they're both at their worst, he could play good defense. I don't know how a Jeff Albert and Troy Snicker offense works. I am optimistic about how things will go, but I also understand they're not miracle workers. So I don't know what we're going to get, but the silver lining I could put in this, and I forgot who tweeted it, that even in the down season Luis Robert had, his production was better than any production the Mets got at center field this past year. So the bar is in hell right now for him to just simply put up the same numbers he did last year while playing elite defense, and you're upgrading at center field compared to what it was last year. Now, obviously, the best outcome is what Andrew said, where he's hitting 40 nukes, and you're maybe getting a 50 stolen base season because he's actually, improved on the bat and got back to what we saw back in 2023. Do I think that's going to happen? No, I'm not willing to play pretend, all right? It's January 27th, not October 31st. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that he's going to be 2023 Robert. I think, and what I said on our show, if you could get that 730 to 750 OPS range, you could get north of 20 nukes from him towards the bottom of your lineup. I think that's productive enough. I would like to see him be the 2023 version because I have questions about the top four of this order. With Polanco in it, I'd feel more comfortable with him hitting fifth. And then all of a sudden, if that's your order there, where you could have Robert hit cleanup and then Polanco fifth, that changes things drastically. So we'll see if he ends up bouncing back with the new hitting environment, the new hitting coaches, actually playing for something. Hopefully this isn't a year where they shit the bed again. For what they gave up, I never cared about that. Acuna was nothing to me, especially after they got Bichette. There was no role for Acuna outside of being a cheerleader and stealing bases every now and then. And then I never heard of what was the prospect name? Truman Pauly, right?
Truman Pauly. Yeah.
Never heard of him until that trade happened. Saw he was drafted in the 12th round this past year. And if the White Sox turn him into something good on the White Sox, but I promise you they're not going to. So again, for what they gave up, I don't care. The bar is low for improvements for center field this year. And like Andrew said, at worst, you end up cutting him. I didn't love the idea of getting Robert, but when the options were what they were, I'm willing to take the chance. And at least it's only for 1 year. I don't care about the money because the thing with the money for me was, is that going to prevent them from making other moves that they need to this for next year's roster? And then 24 hours later, they make a huge trade, so which we'll talk about. So we'll see where it goes, but hopefully they could get like 50% even of 2023 Robert.
Now, Matt, before I go into you, I'm just going to tell you, just to add on to that point of Mets center fielders. Like we said, Luis Robert, 84 weighted runs created plus last year. Career down year, wasn't fantastic. Mets center fielders last year, a 64 weighted runs created plus. That is just throughout all of the center fielders. So you're talking about Robert, you're talking about Taylor, you're talking about Mullins.
Great Jeff McNeil.
Jeff McNeil, too. So, again, it's even at him at his worst is better than the Mets center field situation at its best. And you're also adding in, even away from offensively, elite defense, great pace running, top 10% speed.
Yeah, listen, for me, I really like this trade. And for multiple reasons, I like this trade. I am obviously going to acknowledge there are risks to this trade. Like obviously, he's making a lot of money, $20 million. There definitely is injury risk, and there is definitely a risk that maybe he comes here and it's just he doesn't click and he doesn't find the type of player that he was back in 2023, 2022, 21. I get that there's a whole bunch of risks, and especially the injury one per se, because if you're not available to play and you can't play well in center field, then you just become useless in a sense, like similar to like we say with Kodak saying, it's like great you have all the skill, but if you can't be on the field, then it doesn't really matter at that point. But we have even heard from Carlos Mendoza, because like when he went on foul territory, he said that they've already been in contact with Robert, and we've even saw when the Mets signed Luis Severino a couple years ago, and obviously we know that Severino himself was injury prone, and we saw that the Mets made adjustments to his diet, to his sleeping regimen, how he works out. So maybe the Mets get in contact, they work with him, and maybe he becomes less of an injury prone player compared to what he was in Chicago. But even like I said, the other thing that I really like about Robert is he offers so many tools that this Mets team has lacked throughout the last couple of years. Defense, speed, ability to hit left-handed pitching, and especially to hit, in the clutch. Because I know his clutch numbers weren't necessarily great the last couple of years, but, when you look more at 2021, 2022, 2020, his clutch numbers were definitely a lot better and a lot more higher to the point where, we would like them to be. But and also, like, I agree with the fact with Andrew. It's like, you take him from an environment where, he's not playing for anything, and, he's playing with a bunch of nobodies. It kind of does, take an effect of you. And I know we've heard the rumors that maybe his attitude isn't the best. He isn't lazy, but I'd be more willing to chalk it up to, like, listen, like, again, he has nothing to play for. And like what Andrew said, like, he came up with a bunch of guys with Moncada, Yasmani Grandal's on that team, Eloy Jimenez was on that team, Jose Abreu was on the team as well. And then now, when he looks over in center field now, he sees an overpaid Andrew Benintendi. I'm sure that's going to change when, he looks over to his left shoulder now and he sees a $51 million MVP candidate in Juan Soto. Like, I'm sure that's going to motivate him a little bit more to be out there and play more to where his level. And you also look at the fact that, look how many, good clubhouse veteran guys that the Mets brought in this year. Guys like Semien, guys like Polanco, guys like Bichette. Maybe those guys could also, motivate him to be the better player to what he is, what we saw, in 2023. That, and I also have faith that the hitting coaches can turn him back, maybe not completely what he was in 2023, but you get some sort of semblance of what he was in 2023, because even, when you look at the batted ball data, he kind of has, switch in the direction to where he's kind of been more of a oppo hitter and more of a straight, through the middle in terms of, hitting fly balls. But when you compare it, to his better years, especially in 2023, when he was, putting 24.5% pull error rate, that's when you saw the, the home runs being 38, and he was hitting for a high OPS, and he was, getting a ton of RBIs as well. So I do have some sort of faith that Jeff Albert and Troy Snicker can look at his swing, make a couple of adjustments, and get back to the semblance of what he was in 23. Again, listen, I'm not saying that he will be back to that player, but like what Evan said, if you can get 25 home runs out of Luis Robert, if you could get around the 750, 760 OPS, along with like 30 stolen bases, you definitely take that for Luis Robert. And again, like what Andrew said, if you're going to hit him, lower down the lineup with a lot less pressure, that could definitely, help him in terms of, he'll definitely get more pitches to hit and he could do more damage. And again, if he's playing well, you can move him up because, again, like what Andrew said, you could potentially get a guy that's hitting fourth in your lineup and, he's hitting north of 30 home runs and he could drive in like 80 RBIs. And I think we would all like that, especially, what we've seen from, the past offenses to where, the Mets lineup hasn't been as deep as what it could be this year. So, listen, like I said, is it definitely a risky move? 100%. But at the end of the day, if he's bad, you get rid of him next year, and it's just a one-year deal. It's not like the Mets signed him to like a 5-year deal where he's making $20 million a year. There is, like I said, there is risk. But if he doesn't work out, you could get rid of him. And again, they give up nothing for him. You give up Acuna, which, like what Evan said, he had no role. And you give up Truman Pauly, who, again, was a 12th round pick last year. And again, if the White Sox develop him, great, but they probably won't. So again, I really like this trade for the Mets.
I mean, it's a long way away for Truman Pauly, who I think has only pitched 4 innings throughout his entire minor league career. Again, I really do like this addition because it improves the dimensions of this team and tools that they just didn't have. And like we said, from the center field position, it's one of the highest athletes on your team. And when you get a guy like Luis Robert, who we know is fast on the bases, we know is a great defensive player, I am very, very, I was very impressed, to be honest, to see what they were, like how it completely transferred over from what the asking price was. Because what exactly, that's what I want to wonder is what exactly did the Mets, what was requested by the White Sox at the trade deadline that made them just completely shut it down? And then what happened over those, next, 6 or 5 months as to how it completely changed to where it's Acuna and Pauly. I'm very weird. It's very, very weird. Maybe it's just because the salary, they picked up his option. We know that there was reports about them wanting Tong or something crazy like that. I don't know if that was completely confirmed, but I'm just I really, really do wonder what the deal is there. But again, there is plenty of things he's got to work out offensively. He's definitely a key to this lineup. Let me just say, if you get, all I can say is if you do, and this is a big if, huge if, big, giant, Justin Herbert if you were to get his 2023 self, this team is going to be really, really good. Extremely good. Because we all know that his 2023 self was not only great offensively, he was great on the base pass. He was great defensively. He was great in all of these different dimensions that help you win ball games. So we will see. As of right now, he's if man. Luis if man Robert. But even if he does not hit, he's still providing you something. At worst, maybe he's Tyrone Taylor, unless he completely, his legs just completely disappear and he can't play defense in center field anymore. Which, again, at age 28, still some room.
I mean, the other
he
thing
could definitely do so. Yeah.
I was going to say the other thing we didn't mention at all is the fact that worst case you have him only hit against lefties, because that's the one thing that he's been good at over the past 2 years.
Yeah. Again, you could possibly do that, and I'm pretty sure you also have the other center field option in Tyrone Taylor, who has reverse splits, if I am not correct on that. So it fits in to this team. It fits in well with what this roster needs, and you also comes with the upside of him possibly being a star, because we've seen that before. We have definitely seen that before, and he still has time to possibly do so. It's definitely possible that he can tap into that again. And like I said, if he's a 110 bat from center field, that's one of the best center field bats in the game. Like we said, with the depth of center field, it's a lot different now. Let's just hope, not just with Luis Robert, but Bo Bichette, both of them stay healthy. And if they are healthy, they can do what they do best. And that is what would definitely help this team, even with them either improving or them having career lows or bad stretches. They could help this team of the weaknesses that it had last year. Speaking of some other directions that the Mets went, sandwiched in between all of these huge moves, they made an addition to the bullpen, which I don't want to spend that much time on because, again, it's a small deal, but he's definitely going to be in middle relief, as the Mets signed Luis Garcia to a 1-year, $1.75 million contract, which is fully guaranteed, as it is a flyer for Flames. The Mets, as of right now, there's definitely a lack of velocity in that pen with Edwin Diaz departing and going to the Dodgers. And a guy like Luis Garcia can definitely throw hard, hit triple digits, sit 90, 96, 97, 98 with his sinker. He's a ground ball guy, obviously. Throws from a high 44-degree arm angle. He was with the Dodgers, the Nationals, and he had a third career stint with the Angels towards the end of the year. Obviously got hit hard a little bit, but that's always really been the case with him, mainly because of the lack of weapons that he has, and we don't know what they're going to end up developing with him. But, however, last year, still a respectable 3.42 earned run average. Little bit high on the whip, obviously, and not to mention he can definitely walk a decent amount of batters. 11.2 walks per 9 in 55.1 innings pitched. But we also saw some really, really good swing and miss stuff against his sweeper and his splitter. 28.7% versus his splitter. 37.9% whiff rate against his sweeper. And not the best quality of contact. We saw right-handed hitters kind of tee off on him, which, again, is an adjustment that can be made since he is a right-handed pitcher, and they can find a way to maybe improve that somehow. 3-pitch guy regularly, and again, it's less than $2 million, less than what they gave, what was it, Jorge Lopez, right? Less than what they gave Ryan Stanek. And arguably you can say Ryan Stanek, he's worse than this guy. So, we will see. But Andrew, we've talked about this before already. Lack of velocity in this pen. I don't know if Luis Garcia completely solves that, but definitely a positive add to this bullpen. Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, it's a guarantee. I'm surprised it's a guaranteed major league deal. You good?
Yeah.
We're
No,
good?
you're good. You're good.
Good? Oh. I was a little surprised it's a fully guaranteed MLB deal, but again, like you said, we needed some velocity in the pen. There's another guy I would like who just throws straight gas and, has a little bit of a walk problem, but would be kind of interesting. And Mr. Kopech, who's still hanging around, David, I know it's hard to ask for things, especially, we've been ruining baseball this last week of making all these moves, but, there's still one more thing in the checklist I would love. So, again, there's not really much to hate about it. Again, it's $2 million, and if he sucks, he joins the list of guys DFA'd by May if he's trash. I mean, again, we see the relievers, they're going to be, they got the damn bus. We would just throw 3 guys in and 6 of them come back. Again, it's a 1-year deal. It's $2 million. If he sucks in spring training,
I think
eat the money. It's only 2.5. It is about a half of a penny.
I mean, Andrew, you kind of lagged, but we heard everything you said. It just didn't catch up. But I think you're good now. I don't know. You just dropped out there a little bit. I just want to continue with this quick. Matt, I'll go to you on this one. Deepening the pen, middle relief here, replacing Stanek. I mean, be better than Stanek. And Stanek was terrible, so the bar's low.
Yeah, listen, I have no problem with this signing. Again, it's cheap. It's bullpen depth. Is he on the older side? Yes. Will he finish the season? Will he be in the Mets bullpen from the start of the year to the end of the year? Probably not, just because we know that Stearns' viewpoint on the bullpen, and we've seen it with bullpens throughout Major League Baseball. They're versatile. The bullpen that starts at the beginning of the year is not going to be the same midway through the season, and it won't be the same at the end of the year. So we'll see what happens. But listen, if Luis Garcia is going to be here, we'll see. Obviously, we'll see how long he sticks around for. But if he can at least be usable and decent depth out of the bullpen, sure, for $1.5 million, I have no problem with it. Again, throws hard, which is something this Mets bullpen needed because they lacked velo. And again, like I said, the sinker got beat up a little bit, but his other pitchers, like the sweeper and the split finger, those pitches were fine. Those graded out well. So again, it's good depth, and I agree with you. He's better than Stanek. It's not a high bar. I mean, Stevie Wonder could be fucking better than Ryan Stanek, and he's blind, but yeah, listen, like I said, I have no problem with this signing. Well, obviously, we'll see what he does in spring training, and we'll see what he does for the first couple months in his bullpen.
I mean, Evan, do you share the same rapport? There's some eloquent words there.
Yeah, I mean, this bullpen is probably the biggest question I have with this team right now. So it was good that they added someone, and like we talked about, they need to add gas to this pen most importantly. So it's nice that they did. I'd like for them to add more, like Andrew said, maybe a Kopech. I still would maybe take a flyer on an Evan Phillips. That's another name that I'd look at. Or I'd look at the trade market and see what's potentially out there, because if Garcia's more in that lower end role where right now I feel like he's kind of playing more of an important role than he should just because of this bullpen not being in the best of shape. So I'd still like them to add another reliever, but it doesn't hurt to have arms because like Matt said, that David Stern said, relievers are volatile and you're not going to end the year with the same bullpen that you start with. And worst case, you cut him and you find someone on the Syracuse bus. Considering the good news is at least you have a lot of options on the way, especially as the season progresses. Like Christian Scott could be that guy to fill in a role in the bullpen. You have, I don't know if Jonah Tong is going to be pitching out of the pen. I'd imagine they want him to start whenever they do call him up, but there is a world where you see him pitch out of the pen a little bit this year. Dylan Ross is obviously someone that we've talked about that we wish we saw him get some runway last year. And then I don't know if we're going to talk about Craig Kimbrell, but they signed him and he could be playing a role to start next year as well, especially because of the fact that AJ Minter might start the year on the IL. But they need to add more because Reed Garrett's out. Denil Nunez is going to be out for the entirety of the season. Everyone's favorite Tyler McGill, who maybe could have moved to the bullpen, is going to be out. So it's just good that they added an option at least. And like I said, one that throws gas at least.
I mean, next in line, if he does...
in a series.
Yeah, in a series. Next in line in the series of culture-changing moves. If Luis Garcia does need help with velocity... There is Huskar Brazaban, who I also know is very, very helpful with the dishwasher and a lot of different chores that he can do. And also, Ryan Lambert as well. Lambert, 8th round pick.
Yes.
2 years ago, could also bring that velocity too. But we will see where they end up doing so. So that's the only thing. If they want to go more ground ball heavy, they need to go more ground ball heavy. But they also shortened it up the middle as well with Lindor and Simeon and Robert in center field. So again, you don't really know what direction they're going to go in for the rest of the bullpen, but we will see. I do feel like it makes sense for them to trade for a reliever, and I think that it's a need for need, one for one type of thing. Again, if you are, like I said, if you are committing to Brett Baty as a part of this team, Mark Vientos, we know that the Padres first baseman, we know that they have made a lot of their relievers available. Vientos for a guy like Jemiah Estrada, like something
Jason
like
Adam.
That. Jason
Although he's
Adam,
coming off a
maybe.
major injury, so I don't know what the
He
situation is there.
Yeah. But I'm not saying completely trade Vientos and, get rid of him just to get rid of him. But if you are looking at that, you want to add to the pen. We'll see what they end up doing. I don't think that there's going to be much of a trade. There might be another signing that they make. Maybe they make a few more minor league signings. I have a feeling that the next or the final piece is going to be like some bench outfielder or some bench, some bench piece. Could it be Austin Hayes? Could it be this? Could it be that? I don't know, but we'll see. Thanks for reminding me we didn't get rid of McGill. Sorry.
The other thing
he's out for this year, so.
The other thing they could do, because we saw Stearns do it in Milwaukee, and we're potentially seeing it, which we'll get to the trade in a minute with Tobias Myers, is maybe they bring back Griffin Canning and put him in the bullpen and stash up on these starting pitchers where your rotation doesn't give you a lot of volume. Let's get guys that could give us innings to bridge our way to the back end of the bullpen.
That could happen. It's all basically just weighing on if Devin Williams can step up and be the closer we know he's capable of being, and we'll see if he ends up being that. Luke Weaver, again, has been good these past few years. It's all really just about building the bridge to the back end. But the lack of velocity still does, I do question it. I do. I definitely do question the lack of velocity. But also, if you're going more in the ground ball route, you built the up the middle that you want for a ground ball type of pitcher. And we'll see how that ends up fitting. We'll see how Bo Bichette does defensively at third. We'll see how a guy like Polanco does at first base. But again, you have built an infield where you can bring in these ground ball guys. They didn't have that type of fitting last year because the infield defense was horrendous. So it's better now. It should be better now. So if they go with the ground ball approach, they can go with the ground ball approach. Maybe you have more strikeouts than you think that you do, more swings and misses than you think you do with a new pitching coach in Justin Willard. Maybe it's different. I don't know. But we will see what happens there. Speaking of pitching, let's get into the main event move that basically was the icing on the cake of a insane shopping spree that the Mets had over this past week, and that being they're trading for starting pitching, which everybody has been waiting for, and they have landed on Freddy Peralta, as the Mets have acquired Freddy Peralta and right-handed pitcher Tobias Myers from Milwaukee in exchange for infield prospect Jet Williams and right-handed pitching prospect Brandon Sproat. Freddy Peralta, one of the most consistent starters in all of baseball over these past few years, ever since becoming a full-time starter. 3 consecutive seasons of 30-plus starts, 160-plus innings, and 200 strikeouts. In fact, he is one of 2 starting pitchers with 200 strikeouts in the last 3 consecutive seasons. Him and Dylan Cease, who ended up getting a 8-year deal from the Toronto Blue Jays. Either way, last year, a career year, 2.70 earned run average. Barely allowed as many base runners, doesn't walk many, strikes out a lot, like we said. He is regularly a 4-pitch guy, notoriously known as Fastball Freddy, which he does throw more than half of the time. Almost 17 inches of induced vertical break from a VAA that is hovering around 4.14 degrees, which is insane stuff. And also can sprinkle in a little bit of the contact management as well, considering that he does not really give up that much of hard contact, even though he's more of a fly ball pitcher. Great extension, has obviously been able to dial it up to 97, 98. Plenty of swing and miss stuff. Can get chases with his secondary stuff. Hard changeup as well. Big curveball, and also a great swing and miss slider, which he probably should use a little bit more, but whatever. Coming off a career best in ERA, opponent's average, batting average on balls in play, and left on base percentage. Pitching from the stretch. They also added in, as the added bonus, an admired, like the wordplay, admired and added bonus, whatever. Tobias Myers as well, who can also be a starting pitcher because he's been a starting pitcher in his career as well. Either way, he has 6 pitches that he can use using the kitchen sink: 4-seam, cutter, slider, splitter, changeup, curve. He has all of it. He has a very special fastball. We have heard that he's great at tunneling pitches as well to get those certain amount of chases up in the zone. He, of course, comes from a high 61-degree arm angle from over the top. Has had a lot more success out of the bullpen. We have seen a sub-2 ERA from him in his career out of the bullpen. He has plenty of years of control. He has control through 2030, I think, actually. Tobias Myers. So, again, there's a lot to like. This is somebody that I believe David Stearns is familiar with. Yes, he is familiar with. He actually traded for him back when he was there in Milwaukee. So, Freddy Peralta, we can start with him. Andrew, I'll go to you as you load back in. I don't know if you were having some internet trouble, but welcome back, buddy. It's great to see you. Freddy Peralta, we got our guy, our certified number 1 in this rotation that Mets fans have been pounding the table for ever since Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer were traded at that deadline sell-off. So we got our guy. for the top of the rotation. Durable guy, makes 30 starts. He's a horse. And it seems like he's a great clubhouse guy. He seems like he's a great guy. So, what do you think of this? I mean, they added to the rotation. The rotation is better compared to last year.
Yeah. I love that they finally get the pitcher they need in this rotation, and yet fans will still find a way to complain. Oh, it's all this day. We gave up too many little people. Again, overall, we saw that the trade package was fine. You get a free Tobias Myers, and you can look at it as this: you flip Tobias Myers and Brandon Sproat are pretty much similar, identical pieces. Okay, you get one stays. So you're telling me I can trade a little person for a top 25 pitcher in the game? Yeah, I'll ship that little person on. I'll get him his little, short bus, and I'll drive him right to the airport. Goodbye, bud. Yeah. So you give up a piece that was blocked. You have Lindor here. Semion's here for 3 years. You have Brett Baty's playing second base. You got, AJ Ewing, who by most, and we've seen now with the 2026 rankings, people are inflating his prospect balloon is going up, an AJ Ewing who could play second base and center field, which is just what Chet Williams can do. So overall, what you gave up was fine. And then this is what you needed. You needed to take the pressure off Nolan McLean to have to be this team's ace. You needed a guy that you could put in the number 2 spot, or technically if you want to have him face Skeens on opening at Citi Field, hell yeah. Fine. If that's what you want to play, it is fine. But we all, at least I would think most of us believe Nolan McLean has a higher upside of Freddy Peralta. We are, like most people, extremely high of ace potential with McLean. Now, with Freddy here, let's say there is a little bit of that sophomore, regression. Okay, now the book's out a little bit. Now we've got a little bit of film on you. Now you're not going to be just surprising us now. You're not, peekaboo, I'm a GOAT, bye. Now, the league is seeing you. There's a book on you. Now they'll make their adjustments. Now with Freddy in here, he's not your true horse as we talked about last year, because if you look at his starts, he only went 6 innings. I believe I saw 5 times. Well, over than 6 innings, which again, it's today's baseball. Who really cares when it comes to it? But again, if you're giving me a guaranteed 175 innings, you take that from your number 2 starter. Yes, you can look at the ERA was, the expected ERA is a little higher, but fine, whatever. You go from one of the best defensive teams to a run prevention aficionado that we are. So, but it's what you needed. It's a guy that you can put in, take the pressure off McLean, and then it just takes everyone else down a step. Now, David Peterson, if he's still here, is your 3. Clay Holmes, who is our most reliable starter, is your 4. Sean Manaea, you expect to bounce back. The other guy, sometimes I wish Godzilla was real to make him scared go away, but he's here too. So you have him who has upside. He's just never here. He's like his pitch. He's like the ghost fork. We never see him. So and if he's here, he has the upside. Who's proven he's been an all-star, and he showed at stretches of being a great pitcher. We just don't see it enough. He's the John Cena and the ghost fork together. That is what Kodai Senga is. But if you get him and he's on the mound,
back to Peralta,
a good pitcher. But back to
sometimes
Freddy
you just got to
Peralta,
steer him in the right direction. Yeah, it's just...
it's the red dots on. But yeah, with Freddy, it is what it is. It's reliability. Let's get to what everyone's complaining about. Oh, it's a rental. Is it that bad? Let's be honest. Is that, oh my God, I don't like the trade because it's a rental. One, you get that prove-it-year buff for you, which we've seen how many times with pitchers and players, when they come to New York, there is an adjustment. We see guys who are great in small markets come here and turn to shit. So give you that kind of, buff for you. Obviously, I wouldn't talk extension, and he is not represented by Scott Boras, so hey, before spring training, hey, maybe there's an extension that makes it even better. But even so, you give him the 1 year. You put the qualifying offer on him, so worst case, you still get a draft pick, and at least it covers you as well. Is if you want to bring him back, there's the qualifying offer is going to be attached to him. So if you lose him, you get a pick. If not, you give that extra protection. And we've seen with these pitchers who are aces, and Freddy Peralta is not an ace. He's a really good number 2. We're seeing it with Framber Valdez. If you put the qualifying offer on not a true ace, teams will stay away. So you have that at least cover up to say, okay, you have that advantage. Like we saw with Cheeto Bear, and we've seen with other players with qualifying offer. You do have some security with that. So the fact that everyone's losing their mind because he's a rental, could I expect it? We've seen he's open to it. which would be great. And that would just put the absolute bow and icing on this beautiful offseason cake. Is a 5-year, $165 million deal for Freddy Peralta. Be locked in as your 2. And then, you have your top 2, maybe a top 3. Next year, there's a guy that, a lot of people want to say, which also, even if the extension isn't given, it's a little less money you have to give up to, get that guy potentially, even though we all know he's going to end up on the Dodgers. Again, it's a win-win move. It's the one move everyone was crying about. They finally do it, and yet people are still crying. Isn't that the Dumpster Dave way?
Yeah, well, hey, it's whatever. I don't really care what they gave up, to be honest. Again, I feel like, as of right now, Jet Williams had no place on this team. He had no place. You also had, even though, you could hide him because he's very small. You also have, Brandon Sproat, who, in my opinion, is being replaced more by Tobias Myers, to be honest, in the role that he was playing on this team. I'll go to you guys with this one. I mean, we needed it. We needed the consistent guy who can glue it all together. What does that mean for the rest of this rotation? We have absolutely no idea. But this is a certified frontline starter that you can put out there on opening day, and you know that you can write him in to go into the 6th inning and not completely suck the life out of the bullpen.
Yeah, and not deal with heat fatigue or whatever else the other guy is dealing with. But yeah,
it's too hot in September.
Yeah, I have a paper cut on my index finger. Either way, though, I'm glad that they finally got someone that could take the ball every 5 days. And at the end of the day, you got to give to get. I really do not care. I never valued Jet Williams high at all. Like you said, there's a logjam either way. And we've heard them talk about Reimer so much to where you have to imagine maybe internally Reimer has lapped Jet Williams internally with their prospect rankings.
I think AJ Ewing has too.
I agree. Yeah, I think both of them have, to the point where, you weren't going to play him at shortstop because the guy making $341 million is here. You're not going to put him in center field because you would need to stack him on top of the other half that we traded to Chicago. So you were left out of options pretty much of what to do with Jet Williams here. And he's pretty much like a Brewers player to a T, so I understand why they wanted him. I'm not crying over that at all. I just never saw at all him being anything special. If I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. It will be my famous last words. Brandon Sproat, I never viewed him as more than a number 3 starter at best, and that's at the very best. I think the safe bet is that he's a good number 4 starter, and if that's holding you back from getting a top-end starter, then we got bigger issues here. That you basically replace by getting Tobias Myers in the deal. Yeah. As for the Freddy thing with an extension, based on what we've heard with, the Mets valuing Jet Williams still, I can't imagine they were willing to give up Jet Williams so easily without the idea of at least trying to extend Freddy. I could be wrong about that, but I think everyone's going insane, shocking Met fans going insane for no reason. I think everyone's going insane, though, for no reason about, he's a rental, he's going to leave after this year. And based on his agency as well, which they are usually open to extensions, I think there's going to be one that gets done. Again, I'll admit if I'm wrong, but hopefully there's something that gets done, like Andrew said, to really tie a bow on this offseason. And I'm excited to see him pitch on opening day.
I'm sorry. I couldn't help myself. Okay. Matt, I'll go to you, obviously. Not only did the Mets add, they add the bona fide frontline piece, they also add some pitching depth as well. Like I said, it's possibly replacing what you're getting from Brandon Sproat. However, we don't know what the rest of this rotation is going to fold out for. What is the deal with Kodai Senga? They're going to go with this 6-man rotation. We'll see. Maybe we have another injury that we will have to tend to among spring training. However, the Mets did exactly what they needed to do in terms of improving this rotation, which was one of their weaknesses last year, one of the sheer weaknesses, and one of the main reasons as to why they missed the playoffs.
Yeah, look, obviously when we went to this offseason, we all knew and we all said that they needed a frontline pitcher, and there were the rumors of they might get Skubal. There was obviously the Ranger-Suarez connection, the Framber-Valdez connection. I always viewed, though, that Freddy Peralta was the most likely candidate just because, yes, he has the David Stearns connection from his time in Milwaukee, and he traded for him, back in like 2015. But I also thought it just, like I said, it made the most sense just because with Skubal, there was never a guarantee the Tigers were going to move him. With Ranger, the Mets were never giving him that deal that he eventually got from the Red Sox. And with Framber, we don't know because he's still not signed, and he'll probably sign somewhere soon. Maybe that's the Orioles, like from the rumors are saying. But I mean, listen, they needed a guy like Freddy Peralta because even though, like Andrew said, that Peralta, when you look at his starts individually, he doesn't go like deep, like 6-7 innings consistently. He'll only go 5 innings at most consistently. But the thing that I like about Peralta is, and like what Evan said, he takes the ball every fifth day, so he's going to be reliable. And in those times where he is pitching and he is going like 5-6 strong innings, their quality starts at the end of the day. And look, there is obviously potential that Peralta could get even better because I mean he's just entering into his prime. Obviously, he's going to be 30 this season, and we know that he likes to fill up the strike zone, and we'll obviously see what maybe adjustments that Justin Wooler makes with him to possibly make him even better. But even that, like, he throws a multitude of pitches. They're all pretty much quality. And listen, what they gave up, like, I don't have a problem with it because you gave up Brandon Sproat, who, at best, like what Evan said, he's going to be a third starter, maybe projecting more as a fourth or fifth starter. Again, it's worth it, especially when the guy who we're also going to talk about, Tobias Myers, he's basically just a replacement from front. And listen, for Jet Williams, I'm not big on Jet Williams, like with all you guys. Maybe he goes to Milwaukee and he becomes a good player. I don't know. Like what Evan said also, that he definitely fits more of that Milwaukee type player. He'll probably start the season because Joey Ortiz himself is not a great shortstop over there in Milwaukee. At least defensively he is, but offensively he can't hit for anything. But yeah, and like I said, with the whole extension talks as well. Listen, I would prefer there to be an extension, and I still think there will be an extension that gets done, whether it's at the start of the year or maybe it's towards the end. It's towards the end of the year. I don't think we'll see anything get done during the season, just because typically players don't like to do anything contract-wise during the season. But like with Andrew said, if it's even at the end of the season, sure, you can stick the qualifying offer on him, and maybe teams won't be as likely to go target him for a long-term deal, and you could get him back on a fairly decent deal for yourself from the Mets point of view. And I know there was the press conferences. Stearns was at press conference and he was speaking about the Peralta acquisition. When reporters were asking about an extension, he really wasn't giving anything much. And then Peralta, he had his press conference today, and he really didn't commit to anything. But you have to look at that again from a negotiation point of view. Stearns is obviously not going to talk about that because one, he can't probably talk about that, and second of all, you're going to lessen your leverage. Because then Peralta is going to look like, okay, if you really want me that bad, give me more money. And Peralta's going to, obviously not say anything and not commit to that because, again, he wants the more money. If Peralta says and states in public, yeah, I want to extend, obviously that gives the Mets more favor to extend them on a lesser deal. So, listen, like I said, it's a great deal. It's a great trade overall. I do think they will extend them eventually, though. Yeah,
I mean, listen, from the trade standpoint, I was more of a Brandon Sproat fan than somebody like Jet Williams. I think I've made this public already. For that, I mean, I'd give this trade an A. And if they do extend him, it would be an A+. Like, that's basically where I'm at. I'm very in between to the floor of this is an A trade because they needed him. It fits well. And even for those of you who, will talk about the overall volume that he does, again, there's this little stat called quality starts where he had at least 6 innings or 3 or fewer runs. He made 33 starts last year. 13 of them were quality starts. So he was able to go through the 6th inning 13 times. So once every 3 starts, I guess. We're looking at it for those types of things. He's made 162 starts throughout his entire career. 66 of them have been quality starts. So it's not just something that just started happening last year. In fact, he had a career high in quality starts in 2023. Either way, we'll get into some questions in the chat to wrap this thing up. But either way, huge week for this team, making all sorts of additions. We will see where they go in the next direction. But, however, Christine in the chat saying, didn't Fragile Senga beg not to be traded? If that was the deal and he didn't want to get traded and they just said, okay, no, we won't trade you, I have kind of an issue with that because I feel like the Mets have already catered to Kodai Senga for 3 years, and they have not gotten that in return. Andrew, if you want to add into all of that, I know that you're done talking about him, but if this was the situation where he begged them not to get traded, he asked to not be traded, and they're like, okay, well, we'll take you off the trade block, I have an issue with that because he hasn't reciprocated any of the accommodations that we have given to him. Why give him another one?
I mean, you want to give me a live mic about Kodai Senga? That's always a really good idea. Yeah, I mean, I can understand, you can have the gall to ask, hey, I don't want to go nowhere. I don't want to go. I want to stay here. But yet we could have had potentially Tetsuya Amai, but no, because he didn't want to play with other Japanese guys. So you're here. So we had to keep you from there. The fact that you want to go, and yes, he hasn't been that outspoken, which again, I would think most people would want to be, hey, I'm coming from a different country. I understand. Like, again, if we're taking strictly the off the field stuff and the compliment on the field, I can understand that. But dude, this is a business. And he has like very small trade protection, I believe. Like, he doesn't have a full no move. Like, you don't have that. If we want to send your ass to go play with McGerbil, we can go send your ass to go play with McGerbil if we want to. Like, you don't have a no trade clause. You have I think it's like a 6-team no trade, I believe. 6 or 8-team no trade, I believe, in that contract. So again, you ain't got full protection. Something like that. So, like, again, most of the time we don't even see you. So you know what? You can go play somewhere else and no one will really care. But if, again, it's pathetic, but again, we'll give it to him because we are a family organization. We treat everyone like family and everybody's great. And we're going to continue to make our locker room better. Again, is it the greatest look? No. Would I have shipped him ass for a bag of balls? Yeah. But, you never have enough pitching. So we can, cry about this dude sucks, but he'll be making starts hopefully in June. Maybe, I would think, unless you ask him to cover first base and he'll just blow his whole lower body out, just cover back. So, because he's made of paper mache. But, who knows?
I mean, I don't know. Matt, if you want to add to it, like, how many? I think he's lost that privilege to be like asked for his request, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if that was the case, like you said, they didn't trade him because Senga basically begged them not to trade him, then I would have a problem with that. I don't think that happened, though, just because we've seen how cutthroat David Stearns has been this offseason in terms of getting rid of guys like Cheeto Bear, like Brandon Nimmo as well. So he doesn't have a problem getting rid of, fan favorite players per se. But I just think it's the fact that teams were not interested in trading for Senga. And I mean, I can't blame them because, yes, is he a great pitcher when he's healthy and he's on the mound? Yeah, absolutely. The problem is the guy hasn't been on the mound barely for the last 2 years. So, and again, listen, do I think Senga's a good pitcher and do I think he has the ability to be a great pitcher? Absolutely. But again, when you're not healthy and you're not available, then that skill does not mean anything. And it also goes hand in hand, like with the Tobias Myers thing and maybe, them, because I also brought up, and I'm interested in the fact that maybe they might bring back a guy like Griffin Canning to simply, stack up on some guys in the bullpen that could at least go multi-innings. And I know because obviously the Mets both have Senga and Manaea this year coming back, and hopefully those could rebound. I at least have a little more faith that a guy like Sean Manaea can rebound than a guy like Kodai Senga. But for the time being, like I said, if you stack some of these guys in the bullpen, that could go longer. You could kind of maybe ease more of those guys in early on the season to where they don't have to go as deep. They can recover more. They could be a bit more healthier, and then, come down the stretch of the season or maybe come the playoffs. Those are when you could see those guys, go out and pitch to their full potential to where we know that they can be minus the injury. So, listen, I would have, if it was for me, I would have moved Senga this offseason, but it just goes back to the point that maybe Stearns tried to move him, and obviously there were rumors early in the offseason that the Mets were interested in, moving Senga. They probably just didn't, get a trade that enticed them enough, and maybe teams weren't, interested enough in giving up something to, to get Senga, for themselves.
Yeah, it's possible. Again, we know that we have seen the starting pitching market and the starting pitching trade market be quite an overpay, especially after seeing what we saw Mackenzie Gore go for. I mean, a lot. Some of these starting pitching trades have been coming. They've been a huge demand. I mean, there's been a huge demand for it, and maybe they just did not match up for a guy like Kodai Senga, who has 2 years of control left, but also is not as much of an appealing asset because of the baggage that it comes with. But again, like I said, if, Senga was the one who made the call, and I don't think that that's the case. If Senga was the one who made the call on it, then I have a problem with it because I still do have this fear. I do have this fear, and I think we all have this fear that we are going to go into spring training and we're going to hear about an injury for Kodai Senga. That's where I have this fear. Even though David Stern says he's had a great offseason and he's been, ramping up well, I still have that injury concern for Kodai Senga. It has not gone away, especially after what we've seen over these past 2 years. Final question here from Blade saying, is Reimer a serious candidate to push up here? And I hear Clifford is a Duda-type player. Reimer has actually been pushed up to their 4th-ranked prospect as of right now via Pipeline. I'm pretty sure Baseball America is also very high on him as well. I'd say that the type of bat you're looking at with Jacob Reimer, the ceiling for this guy is Austin Riley. I really do believe so. Will he get it? I don't know. I have no clue. Will he be able to play third base because his defense is a little iffy? I don't know either. Clifford, Dudot type player, that's someone you could put in there as a comparison. You could also put some Jay Bruce in there as well, something like that. These are guys who are bat first pieces. They're definitely bat first pieces. So we'll see how it goes. But, Reimer has definitely gotten a lot of praise along with a guy like AJ Ewing, who has rised up a lot too. But it does just go to show that the Mets player development, building from the ground up, it has definitely been more impressive in comparison to what we've seen in the past where guys get injured, guys have, they completely flop at the AA level, that's just a few names that we've seen be seen as top prospects and just kind of fall out of favor. Alex Ramirez comes to mind. Kevin Parada comes to mind. We don't even know if Kevin Parada even exists anymore. We've seen plenty of guys fall out of favor in the minor league system. But recently, I even made a post about this a few days ago of the amount of guys who had amount of pitchers had a sub 3.5 ERA or a 725 OPS. It's pretty much about like 22 guys out of that top 30 from Pipeline. So it's a lot. It is definitely a lot. So it's encouraging to see what this farm system is at, and especially with the team that we have expected at the top. There's a lot to be excited for. And when you look at these 2-year deals that they have at the major league level, they're building a bridge here, and they're going to give these young guys a chance to make the team and be contributors down the line and in the future for this team. Andrew, if there's anything you want to add, Reimer, Clifford, is this your next Chapman and Olsen? Your next Riley and Olsen?
Yeah, and I saw the comment being like, "Oh, is he Lucas Duda?" I mean, hell, I'll take another 30 homer bat who is a better defender than Duda at first base, who also can play the corner outfield. I mean, he could be, again, if we were living in the multiverse of what we are.
Corner outfield.
We're throwing Brett Baty in left field. We're throwing anybody in the outfield. It don't matter.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I forgot.
Out there. with this organization, if you got
Alvarez
two
is going to
breathing
left field, I
hearts, you're
forgot.
going out there. Hey, he's not that good at catcher, but that's a different conversation. Yeah, there's a world where if Jorge Polanco can't play first base and Cliff Dog goes to Syracuse and starts raking, like there's a possibility where All-Star break, post All-Star trade deadline, he could be your first base. Possibility. Again, I'm not banking on it. I would like to have him have a full year in Syracuse. That'd be great. But the power upside's always been there. I mean, I think you called him like a Schwarber type a couple years ago, like a year ago. Like that's kind of what he is. He walks a lot, strikes out, and it's homers. We take that every day of the week.
It was always Jay Bruce.
Nobody care about Jay Bruce. So don't say the name of Mets history. But like Reimer and it's been Ewing is the other one where he's getting like a lot of helium as a prospect. Again, we saw him pop in the pipeline at 97, Baseball America I think at 97. Because that's a weird position where you play second base.
It's the tools
in center field. So like I think I was listening to the Met DeMayo and them, and they were saying like we saw what happened with the Mets trading the defensive center fielder, in that Cub trade. This would be one that you want to hold on to. And I think you asked earlier about what the White Sox want for Robert at the deadline. AJ Ewing was one of the pieces they wanted. Like obviously besides the pipe.
Yeah, AJ Ewing was one of the pieces that the Marlins wanted as well for Edward Cabrera.
For Edward Cabrera. So, and the fact that made Jet Williams expendable. But I'm hoping, even if Ryan Clifford's just Lucas Duda, okay, he can hit 7th in this lineup and hit 30 homers. You take that. Like, again, if that's the best possibility, Lucas Duda had some good years power-wise. You need that. Again, Cheeto Bear, that's all the Cheeto Bear did, and you guys are on your knees for this dude. You give me a 30 homers, boom, cool. And he's got a better nickname. Yeah. He's Clifford the Big Red Dog. Like, are you kidding me? That's so much more marketable than a Cheeto white polar bear who murdered children. Like, give me Clifford who's hanging out with children. Are you kidding me? This is not even a conversation. Come on.
Oh, God. All right. Yeah, cool. I mean, AJ Ewing, I think that the appeal is obviously the on-base prowess, obviously. His ability to get on base, and then also the fact that he stole 70 bags last year. And then the good bat to ball skills as well. I know that he doesn't really provide amazing power, but he has an incredibly quick swing, which maybe can be maximized at one point. And he's only 21 years old, so maybe he grows in a little bit to that power where you can see some of those tools. So I'm not saying that he's going to be a huge contributor for this team and he's the future center fielder, but I do like him. In that certain situation where, you see him more as a center fielder in comparison to Benj, who I think is a little bit more in the corners. As for some other stuff, some little notes, like we said, I think somebody said it. Craig Kimbrell was signed to a minor league deal, so future Hall of Famer. Is joining our bullpen possibly, even though I do expect him to opt out and go to a team that would want him after the end of spring training, but we will see. Let's see. Luis Robert will be wearing number 88. Bo Bichette will be wearing 19. Congratulations to Carlos Beltran being elected to the National Baseball Hall of Fame, class of 2026. And also, we just got a report while we were going live that the trade deadline is scheduled to be August 3rd at 6 p.m. Eastern time this year. So that's a little bit different. I think it was August 1st last time. It stopped at maybe 5 p.m. last time. It was a little bit different, but as we all know, we're always live for that trade deadline, so I'm sure.
And it's a Wednesday. So I'll be off.
It's a Wednesday, so we'll see where this goes. Either way, we're going to end it off here. Thank you to Evan and Matt for joining the show. Even though they are very frequent guests, it's always fun to have you guys on. Evan had to step out early, but Matt, if you want to speak on behalf of Mets Central, great to have you guys on again. But if there's anything that you want to say towards the end here, because it's been a productive last week for the Mets. They have been killing it, going nuts.
Yeah, as always, it's great to be on here because, like I said before, it's always entertaining when we all, join up together and end up doing one of these podcasts. So, yeah, and like you said, Carson, productive week for the Mets. They did a lot with the Robert, Peralta, Bo Bichette, Tobias Myers as well. So, I mean, yeah, listen, like we said, spring training is a couple weeks away. World Baseball Classics a couple weeks away. You know, getting a little bit more towards the day where we can, finally stop caring about Rangers hockey and we can focus our full attention on Mets baseball, because I'm sure you, me, and Evan, we all share that same sentiment. Obviously, Andrew can watch his Pittsburgh Penguins play, so he can enjoy that. But yeah, obviously, like I said, great to be on here, and hopefully, we could do some more podcasts during the season when we do the series reviews after every series.
Yeah, obviously, this is going to be a fun season. I know that it started off rocky in this offseason. Everybody wanted to kill each other. But it was all really just about patience. You had to, and I'm not being patient, saying patient, being patient for 40 years, being patient for a winter. That's all you got to do. That was it. We all knew that they had somewhat of a plan, even though there was some to the contrary that said no. They had a plan, and they stuck to it. They added to the roster, and I believe that this roster is better than last year's. More versatile, more deep, and you don't just need stars. You need a team. You need 26 guys, your best 26 guys. Even if that does include Brett Baty, who is probably like the 121st best player in the organization. Andrew, I'll go to you, and I think we'll close this out.
Oh, man, closing out. I mean, again, the entertainment of a Mets Central, Mets Weekly collab. I mean, you never know. The red light goes on. We don't do this much, but we are closing in on 3K. Can we get to 3K subscribers before spring training? We got a couple weeks, so if you're new, hit that subscribe button, turn on them post notifications. Go follow Matt and Evan on Matt's Best Centrals. All they're probably linked down in the description below, or they did simulcast, so they'll find it there. You'll see my beautiful rhino face, his nerd face. We're there too. We're closing in a couple weeks. There will be a wild rhinoceros loud in Port St. Lucie, so it's going to be fun. Again, they're going to watch. They're tired of watching their depressing hockey team. My team's winning the Stanley Cup, and it's great. Life's good. Let's go Mets. Brett Baty MVP season's coming up, and Carson's going to have to eat, lava cake live on stream.
Okay. Yeah. Anyways, we're going to wrap it up. Like you said, subscribe, post notifications. We are live regularly, even though the scheduling was a little bit skewered because of all the moves and all of the live streams we had to do. Either way, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time every Friday, all the way to opening day. Follow Mets Weekly on X, TikTok. Follow all of us individually, and finally, let's go Mets! And we are closing in on a great offseason as spring is very, very close. We will see you guys next time.